Chapter 773. Madame Sidhu was already middle-aged, but she was still beautiful, dignified, and charming. When she was young, she was a stunning, peerless woman, and she was a goddess that many people yearned for. Later, she married into the Sidhu family, and her husband died during an expedition shortly after they got married. From then on, she became the family's pillar. Her beauty was still coveted, but it was fortunate that she was strong enough, so most people didn't dare to covet her, except for the person in front of her. It was the Shao family's master, Shao Yueming. He was once an outer sanctum disciple of the Red Blood Palace, and she had admired him since she was young. However, Shao Yueming had evil intentions, so she didn't like him. Madame Sidhu's gaze became sullen as she said, "Shao family's master, you don't need to worry about me." Shao Yueming smiled and said, "Madame Sidhu, it seems like your family's juniors aren't anything special. I heard that you spend a lot of money to find geniuses and escort them into the outer sanctum. So why don't you beg me? Because of our past relationship, I won't just stand idly by." Madame Sidhu's tone was cold, as she knew that if he begged her, he might have some improper thoughts. There is no need for that. The Shao family should just take care of our family's juniors. Displeasure appeared on Madame Sidhu's face. Shao Yueming acted as if he didn't see this, and his gaze swept over the family's juniors. He then swept over Yin before his gaze fell on the two men in bamboo hats next to her. He then smiled faintly and said, "Well, is this what you're relying on? Is it? I think it's a bit difficult. How about I let the juniors of the clan protect Yin? I know that she's your most beloved daughter." His threatening words made Madame Sidhu's expression turn ice cold. Shao Yueming, enough is enough. She swept the Shao family's juniors with her gaze, and her heart shuddered. The Shao family's juniors were full of talents, and they had around 20 of them. All of them were level 1 fairies, while there were 5 or 6 level 2 fairies, 2 level 3 fairies, and 1 level 4 fairy. She knew him. He was from the Shao family. They were the Shao family's strongest geniuses. However, what shocked her even more was that there was also a level 5 fairy woman. She had a big bow on her back, and her whole body emitted a cold aura. "Hehe, I forgot to introduce you. This is the disciple of my Shao clan's branch, Shao Li. Lear, hurry up and greet Lady Sidhu." Shao Li's expression was grave and stern as she nodded at Madame Sidhu indifferently. His gaze landed on Yin, and a playful smile appeared on his face. Lady Sidhu's expression changed drastically. Without a doubt, they had set their eyes on Yin. They clearly knew that Yin was the only bloodline of the Sidhu family's legal wife, and they were prepared to eliminate her completely. "Shao Yueming, how dare you?" Lady Sidhu's killing intent soared. The corners of Shao Yueming's mouth curled up into a mocking smile. "I didn't say anything. Why are you so agitated?" Then he looked at Su Yu and Yuan Yingying and said, "You must protect Miss Sidhu." With that, he turned around with a satisfied smile. But all of a sudden, an indifferent reply came from behind. "You don't have to worry about it, Shao Clan Master. You should take care of your own juniors." At this moment, the families and forces on the other pillars were watching coldly from the sidelines and did not interfere. Even the Shangwan clan did not dare to speak up when they saw the Sidhu clan being bullied. The reason was that the Shao family was ranked higher than the Shangwan family. The Shangwan clan was ranked second among the 18 sects, and above them was the Shao clan, which was ranked first. Although the crowd couldn't bear to see this happen, they still didn't dare to speak up. What if the Shao family hated them out of jealousy and ordered their juniors to suppress them during the test? Many of the factions were angry, but they didn't dare to speak up, yet a reckless guy dared to talk back to them. All of them looked at the man beside Yin, who was wearing a bamboo hat. Shao Yueming didn't expect that someone would dare to talk back to him. When he turned his head around and saw Su Yu wearing a bamboo hat, he curled up the corners of his mouth and revealed a faint smile. "Hehe, the younger generation will surpass us in time. It seems like you are quite confident in protecting Yin. It's still early, so why don't you let our juniors have spar with you? That way, they will be able to save their lives during the test." Lady Sidhu's expression became ice cold. "Shao Yueming, Aren't you ashamed enough to bicker with a junior? Xiao Yuanming didn't care about this at all. Madam, you are overthinking this. It's just a spar, and it won't cause any harm. Xiaohu, you should go and deal with the opponent's expert. Remember, don't beat him to death. Swoosh! A stocky youth strode out of the crowd, and every step he took caused the ground to tremble. His cultivation was at the level 2 fairy realm, but judging from the blood energy emanating from his body, it wasn't any weaker than a 2.5 elephant's fleshly body. As such, none of the level 2 fairies dared to face his fist head-on. This is a spar. His cultivation is higher than mine, and he's even a body refiner. Lady Situ clenched her teeth, while hatred welled up in her heart. Xiao Yuanming had intentionally humiliated the Situ family in front of so many people. She couldn't help but feel resentful. Xiao Yuanming revealed a faint smile and said, I'm just anxious for Yan. If I can't even deal with such an opponent, how can I bear the heavy responsibility of protecting Yan? In fact, both he and Lady Situ understood that Xiao Yuanming wanted to use this opportunity to see Su Yu's capabilities, so that he wouldn't fail in killing Yan. Elderly spoke calmly. Xiao family's master, the test is just around the corner, so you shouldn't use force. If you want to spar, you can do it after the test. Elderly was the Situ family's envoy, so he obviously didn't want to see them being bullied. Lady Situ looked at him gratefully. However, when he just finished speaking, an old man, who was wearing a silver robe and was standing on one of the Xiao family's pillars, laughed heartily and said, Elderly, you are worrying too much. A spar before the test can raise people's spirits, and it will be beneficial for the test. Why do you have to obstruct me? Elderly's expression became gloomy as he looked at him. This was the Situ family's envoy, Elder Tong, who had a higher position than him in the Outer Sanctum's ranking. When Su Yu saw that everyone was put in a difficult position, he strode forward and revealed a faint smile as he said, What this elder said isn't wrong. There's nothing wrong with exercising before the test. Madam, I will take my leave first. Swoosh! Su Yu tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, streaked across the sky, and landed on one of the Xiao family's pillars. His action of advancing forward instead of retreating startled the crowd. He's full of vigor. Youngsters should be like this. The elders on the other pillars, who were on Lady Situ's side, couldn't help but cheer. Originally, it was the Xiao family that was provoking the Situ family, but now, it seemed like it was the Situ family that was provoking them. Xiao Yuanming examined Su Yu calmly, then waved his hand and said, Xiao Hu, it seems like this expert is quite powerful, so you don't need to hold back. Just fight him with your whole power. Xiao Hu grinned and said, I understand. As he spoke, he strode forward and looked down at Su Yu. I will defeat you with just a single move. Iron Dragon enters the sea. Xiao Hu revolved his whole body's vital energy and imbued it into his fists, causing his fists to reach their strongest state, which contained 2 elephants' worth of power. If a level 2 fairy was struck by his fists, they would most likely suffer heavy injuries, let alone a level 1 fairy. Lady Situ clenched her fists. Although she believed in that great lord's judgment, she had never seen Su Yu fight before, so she couldn't help but worry about him. Now, it was time for her to observe him. As Xiao Hu's fist approached him, its intense energy caused Su Yu's white hair to flutter. However, his eyes, which were beneath the bamboo hat, were still calm and composed. Su Yu strode forward with his left foot and revolved his vital energy in his right fist, then thrust it forward lightly. One of them had a sturdy body, while the other was thin and old. Crack! However, when their fists collided, a cracking sound was heard from Xiao Hu's arms, while his sturdy body was pushed back. He almost fell off the pillar. Thump! Even though he managed to stop himself from falling back in the end, he still staggered and fell to the ground. He was in a complete mess and was in a sorry state. As for Su Yu, he just stood in his former place without moving an inch. Even though Xiao Hu's power had struck him, it didn't affect him in the slightest. Su Yu slowly retracted his left foot and pulled down his bamboo hat. He then said calmly, You really defeated me with just a single move. You defeated me with just a single move. Delight appeared on Lady Situ's face, as Su Yu was stronger than she had imagined. Xiao Hu's fist was at the level of a level 3 fairy, yet he had still been easily defeated. It was obvious that Su Yu's fighting prowess wasn't any lower than a level 3 fairy's. Fairy. Elderly heaved a sigh of relief, while a faint smile appeared on his handsome face. He then looked at Elder Tong, who had an unnatural expression on his face. The faint smile on Xiao Yueming's face disappeared, and he looked at Xiao Hu with obvious disappointment in his eyes. Didn't you use too much power when you attacked him? Xiao Yueming looked at Su Yu with his hands clasped behind his back, while his formless aura pressed down on Su Yu. However, Su Yu wasn't afraid of it, and he calmly took several steps forward to avoid the aura's pressure. He then said calmly, "Xiao family's master, shouldn't you thank me for not killing him? If you don't lack eyesight, you should know that if I hadn't held back at the last moment, your so-called genius family's junior wouldn't have just had his arms broken." All of the almighty divine masters nodded at the same time. Even fairies couldn't discern it. So how could they not? At the last moment, Su Yu had held back half of his power, as he knew that he would surely lose his life. Xiao Yueming pretended that he didn't know anything about it, yet he still questioned him. Xiao Yueming was slightly angered by the crowd's gazes, but he still put on a gentle expression. "Junior, your power isn't bad. Are you willing to continue exchanging pointers with me?" Madame Sidu wanted to obstruct him, but Su Yu spoke before her. "You can. Xiao family's juniors. If you feel like you're a genius, you can challenge them one by one, as it's only in this way that you can understand your own power. Once you reach the test stage, you will know who you can provoke and who you can't." Such arrogant words really made everyone speechless. Isn't this guy too arrogant? Even if he didn't take the Xiao family's geniuses seriously, he should at least be afraid of Xiao Yueming. After all, Xiao Yueming isn't a magnanimous person, and if he was really infuriated, he would surely take revenge on him. TSK. He's really arrogant, but his temperament is to my liking. It seems like he's the helper that the Situ family invited. He didn't cower when he saw Madame Situ being bullied. Instead, he stood up for her. TSK. He's really arrogant. The Xiao family's juniors were infuriated, and they all looked at Su Yu angrily. No one had ever dared to look down on the Xiao family's genius juniors. Chapter 774. Su Yu cast a glance at her and shook his head. "I'm not being arrogant, but I'm just reminding you not to cause trouble for me after entering the exam, so that you won't be able to come out alive if an accident happens to you. I'm actually trying to save your lives." His blatant threat infuriated the Xiao family's juniors. "Then, let me see whether you are qualified to cause any accidents to happen to us." The woman looked at him coldly. Since the Xiao family had been humiliated in public, both she and her family had a duty to subdue them. They had to windlass waves. The woman weaved signs with her hands. She was obviously using a magical technique. A formless cold wind started blowing around the woman's body. As she tapped the ground with the tip of her foot, her whole body started drifting erratically like a cloud of dust. Su Yu stood his ground and swept the surroundings with his gaze. All of a sudden, Su Yu pointed his finger at a spot 5 feet away from him. Slap! A soft sound echoed out, followed by a muffled sound. The woman, who was extremely fast, staggered and fell from her high-speed rotation. Blood was flowing out of the corners of her mouth, and her pretty face was ice cold. It still isn't over. Wind-controlling finger. The woman didn't retreat, but charged forward instead. Wind started swirling around her fingertips, which then turned into sharp needles. A wind vortex appeared under her feet, and she instantly reached Su Yu. Her sharp fingertips were only 3 feet away from Su Yu. It was at this moment that Su Yu thrust his right fist forward. Flames appeared in his body and engulfed his palm. Crack! As a crisp sound echoed out, the woman's index finger was broken, and a powerful force spread from her finger to her arm, shattering all of her bones. As she screamed miserably, her beautiful face turned pale, and she retreated. However, this wasn't the end of it. The flames in Su Yu's palm followed her finger and quickly spread to her body, setting her dress ablaze. The woman hurriedly revolved her vital energy to extinguish the flames. However, the flames were extremely strange, and her vital energy could only obstruct them. Half of her body was still burning. Xiao Yueming's gaze became ice-cold, and he waved his hand. A divine master's power engulfed the woman, and the flames were extinguished. Many parts of the woman's body were burned red, and half of her dress had been burned off. A small white rabbit, which was hidden in front of her chest, trembled slightly. Ah! The woman shrieked in shame and indignation. She covered half of her body and squatted on the ground, wailing loudly. Suyu retracted his fist, and the flames dissipated. He then said calmly, "It's obvious that I have the right to cause any accidents to happen to you. If any of you aren't convinced, then come and fight me." At this moment, everyone was astonished. Defeating a level 2 fairy with a single punch had already shocked them greatly. However, it was still a level 3 fairy's fist, which was no small matter. As the crowd looked at Suyu, who was wearing the bamboo hat, they were all surprised. Where did Lady Sidu find such an expert? Judging from his fighting prowess, he is probably one of the best level 3 fairies. The Situ clan is lucky. Such a young expert usually has his own recommendation and assessment channel. Why would he accept the mission of protecting the Situ clan? Everyone discussed animatedly. The Xiao family had lost twice in a row, and they had lost all face. No challengers? Suyu swept his gaze over the Xiao family's 4 level 3 fairies, 1 level 4 fairy, and the callous level 5 fairy young lady. In the eyes of the Xiao family's experts, this kind of gaze was a complete provocation. "Let me do it," one of the level 3 fairies said. Ah! As soon as they clashed, he was sent flying with a single punch. "Me too. I still haven't finished speaking." The crowd witnessed the Xiao family's level 3 fairies, who went forward to challenge him. All of them were sent flying by a single punch. Such overwhelming power allowed the crowd to witness Su Yu's great power. Lady Situ's pretty eyes flickered, and she was pleasantly surprised. Her lord had really found such a powerful genius for them. He was obviously just a level 1 fairy, yet he could easily defeat the Xiao family's level 3 fairies. His fighting prowess was probably close to that of a level 4 fairy. The Xiao family's juniors' gazes gradually changed. Their expressions changed from one of humiliation to one of shock, then to one of dread. Even now, no one dared to challenge him. The only level 3 fairy young lady, who hadn't challenged him yet, looked at Suyu in fear. Suyu looked at Xiao Yueming and said, "This is the Xiao family's so-called genius. This is the Xiao family's so-called genius. Xiao's family master, you really should worry more about your family's juniors, as it would be better for you to worry less about the Sidu family's affairs." Suyu looked at Xiao Yueming calmly. Xiao Yueming's expression became gloomy as he watched his juniors being sent flying one after another. The Xiao family's master and the Branch family's young lady were the only 2 people who hadn't challenged him yet. "I will fight you." The 17-year-old youngster walked over with his hands clasped behind his back. He wore an ice-cold expression, as if he wasn't startled by his family's defeat. His eyes naturally revealed a strong sense of confidence. "Young Master Xiao." Lady Situ's pupils contracted, while anticipation appeared in her eyes. This was an opportunity to test the Xiao family's young master's cultivation, as well as Su Yu's bottom line. The other family's people also wore expectant looks on their faces. Xiao Yueming furrowed his brows and said, "Ling Jian, don't be impulsive. Now isn't the time for you to fight." He didn't want his child's cultivation to be seen through before the test, as it would be disadvantageous for him during the test. Xiao Lingjian clasped his hands behind his back and said, "I know what I'm doing. I will only use one move, and I will stop here, regardless of what happens to me." He understood what was at stake here, so he didn't plan to fight for long. So he looked at Suyu and said, I just need one move." Many families' people looked at him with solemn eyes. There were many rumors about Xiao Lingjian's power, but few people had seen him fight in person. It was rumored that he had once defeated a level 5 fairy, who had just advanced to the level 5 fairy realm not long ago. He had even managed to exchange 3 moves with a level 6 fairy realm expert without being defeated. His fighting prowess was still a mystery to them. Suyu said indifferently, "Let's fight then." Xiao Lingjian clasped his hands behind his back and took a step forward. His robe fluttered even though there was no wind as he extended his right palm. A cracking sound echoed from his arm's bones, which echoed for a total of 49 times. The 100 Bones demonic tempering technique? Lady Situ's gaze became grave, while hatred appeared in her eyes. In the past, my husband went on an adventure with Xiao Yueming, but he died mysteriously. Xiao Lingjian managed to bring back a high-grade legendary cultivation technique, the 100 Bones demonic tempering technique. It was rumored that this cultivation technique was passed down from ancient times, and even though it was just a fragment, it was still an extremely powerful demonic body tempering technique. After cultivating it successfully, the density of one's bones would increase sharply, which would greatly strengthen one's fleshly body. Since then, Xiao Yueming had managed to become a young master from an ordinary candidate, and he had managed to defeat many families' masters. This was all because of this 100 Bones demonic tempering technique. The Sidu family's master's death was related to the 100 Bones demonic tempering technique, and it was also related to Xiao Yueming. If you try to block my palm strike head-on, your arm's bones will surely shatter into 49 pieces. So, you should prepare yourself for that, Xiao Lingjian said. He had cultivated 49 echoes, which meant that when he injured an enemy, it would be 90%. 4 of his bones would shatter. Shatter! Xiao Lingjian walked over and clasped one of his hands behind his back, while his other hand reached for Suyu's head. A faint sound of air friction echoed around his arm. Suyu detected danger, so he didn't take it lightly. His physical strength had already reached the level 4 fairy realm, even without using the first dragon's body. After going through the destruction and rebirth of the time and space reversal, as well as the tempering of the disastrous thunder and disastrous fire, it would be difficult for anyone below the level 4 fairy realm to block a single punch from Suyu. However, Xiao Lingjian's 100 Bones demonic tempering technique was no small matter, and Suyu was forced to deal with it cautiously. The blood energy channels in Suyu's arms turned golden, and the strength in his arms increased tremendously. Bang! He punched out and clashed with his opponent's palm. Xiao Lingjian's cold expression changed slightly, and a hint of seriousness appeared in his calm eyes. Rub, rub. He was forced to take 2 steps back. His left hand, which was behind his back, was unknowingly put down. He didn't have the calmness and confidence he had before he attacked. As for Suyu, he was also forced to take 2 steps back. He was slightly surprised by this, as even though he had raised his fleshly body's power to the pinnacle and reached the level 5 fairy realm, he was still only able to fight Xiao Lingjian evenly. Of course, pure physical power was just Suyu's most basic power. If he used the Buddhist Saints' 8 characters, which he had cultivated to the top class of the first stage, then even a level 5 fairy realm young girl wouldn't be able to avoid him. Too late. This scene caused everyone's expression to change and turn serious. Even though Xiao Lingjian was very powerful, that mysterious bamboo hat genius was even more frightening. A level 1 fairy possessed a fleshly body comparable to a level 5 fairy's. This meant that the other party's physical body had reached an exceedingly strong realm. Xiao Yueming's expression became gloomy, and he finally looked at Suyu squarely. Xiao Lingjian took a deep look at Suyu, then moved back slowly. He didn't lose his reason and continue fighting. Why don't I give it a try? The level 5 fairy girl, Xiaoli, walked over coldly and stared at Suyu. However, Xiao Yueming waved his hand. Come back. Xiao Lingjian's attack already seemed like he was bullying the weak, so if another level 5 fairy appeared, wouldn't they become a laughingstock? If Xiaoli were to win, the Xiao family would only end up with the reputation of being shameless and a sore loser. However, if they were to lose, they would become a laughingstock. It was very inappropriate for her to make a move. Kid, can you tell me who you are? Xiao Yueming did not believe that a person of the younger generation with such battle prowess would come to the Sidu clan and become a guard. He could not understand this at all. Similarly, everyone present couldn't figure it out. Since this child had displayed such heaven-defying abilities, he shouldn't be in nobody. At the very least, he would be taken in by many clans. Or, like the Sidhu clan, he would be included in the assessment to protect their own people. Could it be that the Sidhu clan was so lucky to encounter one? At the Shangwan clan, surprise appeared in Shangwan Young's eyes. Father, the bamboo hat man invited by the Sidhu clan is excessively powerful. I assumed that we were the only one who managed to invite a level 5 fairy genius to help our sisters-in-law. I didn't expect that the Sidhu clan would also have such a young expert. Upon hearing this, the Shangwan family's master nodded and looked at the bamboo hat man. He then said, "It's really surprising. Even if such a genius doesn't enter the Red Blood Palace, the Sidhu clan will surely recruit him and nurture him. Such a genius will surely have limitless achievements in the future." He then added, "Yunk, you should look for an opportunity to go over and interact with him. Let's see whether you can recruit him into our Shangwan family." The Shangwan family's master admired the bamboo hat man greatly. Chapter 775. The Shangwan family's master revealed a faint smile and said, "We are just cherishing his talent. That youngster won't be able to display his talent in the Sidhu family, but our Shangwan family can provide him with a stage." Similar conversations have been heard by all the families on the stone pillars. Lady Sidhu's heart was as clear as a mirror, so she waved at him with a gentle smile and said, "Mr. Su, come here quickly." She had unknowingly changed the way she addressed him to Mr. Su. Since the Shao family had given up, Su Yu didn't want to continue challenging them. He said calmly, "The challenge has come to an end. I will say it for the last time. Don't provoke me. Otherwise, I can guarantee that you will all die in the exam." His blatant threat made the Shao family's juniors angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. They had just threatened to kill the Sidhu family's first daughter, Yin, but now they were being threatened by Su Yu, who threatened to kill them in the exam grounds. After the previous fight, they didn't doubt Su Yu's ability at all. Once he was alone, no one could withstand more than 2 moves from him. Hearing Lady Sidhu's call, Su Yu flew back to the pillar. Lady Sidhu became even more enthusiastic, and she looked at Su Yu once again. His performance had really surprised her. She had assumed that the level 4 fairy realm was his limit, but in the end, even the Shao family's young master had managed to fight him to a draw. Lady Sidhu could see boundless potential in him. "Mr. Su, you must have worked hard. So, why do you need to stand up for the Shao family and offend them? With the Shao family's master's magnanimity, you won't be able to avoid trouble afterward." Lady Sidhu took out a white pill with her fair fingers. The pill's fragrance was intoxicating, and there were 3 patterns on its surface. It was a priceless 3rd-grade spirit pill. Su Yu was startled. Yin, who was beside him, said with a smile, "Eat it. This is a vital energy recovery pill unique to the Sidhu family. My mother made it herself. She was still a primary alchemist." Su Yu took it and swallowed on the spot. The vital energy in his body recovered quickly, and its effects were excellent. As he looked at the beautiful and dignified Lady Sidhu, Su Yu knew what she was thinking. She had told him that the Shao family would cause trouble for him because she hoped that he would join the Sidhu family and receive its protection. However, Su Yu's ambitions weren't in the Sky Castle, so he could only politely decline. "Senior, you don't need to worry. As long as the all-creation old monsters didn't hunt him down, even if Su Yu couldn't defeat them, he would still be able to escape." A trace of disappointment flowed through Lady Sidhu's beautiful eyes, and she blamed herself inwardly. She had misjudged him along the way, and she hadn't realized his potential. If they knew that he had such shocking potential, even if they couldn't rope in the Sidhu clan, they would still deliberately try to get closer to him. Since that's the case, you just have to be careful. If there's any trouble, you can look for Yin in the outer sanctum. Although the Sidhu family is in dire straits, we still have some power in the outer sanctum. Lady Sidhu settled for the next best thing. Su Yu nodded and went back to Yuan Yingying and Zixian's side. "Why do you have to be nosy?" Zixuan said curiously. "Master told me that the number 1 taboo when traveling in the world is to meddle in other people's business, and people like this usually die very quickly." Su Yu revealed a faint smile as he said, "I'm sure that your master didn't tell you that you should always take preventive measures." The Shao family has made it clear that they want to deal with us, so if we don't give them a show of strength and intimidate them, then we won't be able to deal with them. What awaits us is endless trouble, Su Yu said. At this moment, he looked at the Shao clan, but no one dared to look him in the eye. He believed that even if they were given more courage, they still wouldn't dare to cause trouble for him. Zixin didn't really understand him, so she said, "It seems like you know a lot." Su Yu chuckled. "If you have any questions, you can ask me." Zixin tilted her head and pondered it for a moment, then nodded. Okay. Elderly was in a good mood, so he walked over to Su Yu and praised him. "Lad, not bad. I'm looking forward to your performance in the exam." Lady Situ was quite delighted, as Elderly was famous in the outer sanctum for his meticulousness. Since he was treating Su Yu in such a manner, it was obvious that he thought highly of him. This meant that there was a high chance that Yen could pass the exam safely. On the Shao family's master's stone pillar, Shao Yueming looked at him coldly, then lowered his voice and transmitted a message to him. "Elder Tong, how are your preparations?" Elder Tong felt somewhat embarrassed, and as he looked at Elderly, who was in a good mood, his expression became even more unsightly. He had instigated the Shao family's members to challenge the Shao family, but in the end, the Shao family's members have been suppressed and beaten by the Bamboo Hat Man. Elder Tong looked at Su Yu with displeasure, then transmitted a message to him as if nothing had happened. "Shao family's master, you can set your mind at ease. Besides your Shao family's members, the other families shouldn't dream of passing the exam easily. The exam's first place doesn't belong to your Shao family." Only then did the Shao family's master's expression soften. They had just received news that the outer sanctum's first place would get a great reward, and even the inner sanctum's disciples were tempted by it. It was only because the Shao family had a deep relationship with the inner sanctum that they had received such news. Dong! A bell's sound reverberated in the vast outer courtyard. A 30-meter-long eagle flew over their heads, and its whole body emitted a powerful aura that caused the blood of the fairies to surge. A divine master realm demonic bird. The crowd exclaimed in surprise. An old woman wearing a plain white robe was standing atop the eagle's head. She had a benevolent and amiable look, but the giant eagle beneath her feet was respectful and submissive. It was obvious how terrifying she was. Outer Palace's young palace master. Many families' masters exclaimed, while respectful looks appeared on their faces. The Red Blood Palace was divided into the Outer Palace and the Inner Palace. The Outer Palace was where the Outer Sanctum's disciples cultivated, and it was guarded by the Red Blood Palace's master, Mo Tianxian. Their cultivations had all reached the late stage of the Divine Master Realm, and just by stamping their feet, they could intimidate the families and factions outside of the 18 great factions. Even the arrogant Shao family wore a solemn expression, and they didn't dare to act rashly. The eagle descended in a spiral and rested on a giant boulder. The envoys on the 10 pillars flew over and stood behind her, all of them wearing respectful looks. Hee, it's the triennial recruitment test, and I hope that several outstanding disciples will appear this year, the young palace master said. Upon hearing this, the expressions of many families' masters became awkward. In the past 10 years, none of the outstanding disciples had appeared in the tests recommended by the outside world. On the contrary, there were many outstanding disciples recruited by the inside world. It was rumored that the Red Blood Palace planned to reduce the number of people recruited by the outside world and increase the number recruited by the inside world. This made many families restless. Although it was just a rumor, if the disciples recommended by the outside world didn't live up to expectations, then the rumor might come true. "We won't disappoint Palace Master Kong Chan," Xiao Yueming said. Palace Master Kong, Chan smiled and nodded. "Let's start." The several envoys' elders started announcing the competition's rules. The first test is to kill demonic beasts in the fairy confining forest. It's a test of one's comprehensive fighting prowess. You must kill a demonic beast at a higher level than you, or 20 demonic beasts at the same level as you. The time limit is 3 days, and anyone who doesn't return to the stone pillar within the time limit will be considered failure. He then added, You will also get point for this test. Killing a level 1 fairy demonic beast will count as 1 point. Killing a level 2 fairy demonic beast will count as 20 points. Killing a level 3 fairy demonic beast will count as 40 points. And killing a level 4 fairy demonic beast will count as 100 points. As for killing a level 5 fairy demonic beast, it will count as 500 points. This test points will directly affect the test's overall ranking, so I hope that you will continue to work hard. The competition's taboo is that you mustn't kill each other. Anyone who violates this rule will be severely punished. The last taboo was just a piece of paper, without any strong supervision, who would know that the participants would kill each other. The competition will start now. The family's juniors on the 9 stone pillars left one after another and entered the boundless fairy confining forest. Madame Situ was quite nervous, and she looked at Su Yu and said, "Mr. Su, I will entrust the Situ family to you." Su Yu nodded, his gaze falling on Yen. "I will protect her." He had only agreed to protect one person, not all of the Situ family's members. Su Yu, Yuan Yingying, Zi Xian, and Yen all set off and flew into the forest. Madame Situ looked back at the juniors and gave them a meaningful look. She wanted them to follow them so that they would be safer. After they entered the forest, Su Yu surveyed his surroundings. "Brother Su, I have a map of the vicinity." Yenner took out an old map from her pocket. It was left behind by an elder of the Situ family, who took part in the test. After many years of improvement, it has a rough description of the places with the most demonic beasts in their power. Su Yu took the map and started looking at it. Yen moved closer to Su Yu and pointed at the correct locations with her slender fingers. She then moved closer to Su Yu, and her sweet fragrance drifted into his nose. Unknowingly, her head was already near Su Yu's chest. Yuan Yingying's mouth twitched. Situ, Yen had also started calling him Brother Su, and when she saw the two of them being so intimate, she also moved closer to him. "Su Yu, I will go and take a look in the vicinity. We will meet up in 3 days," Zi Xian said as she squinted her eyes. Su Yu knew that she was going to search for him among the people who took the test. "Take care of yourself," Su Yu said. Zi Xian rolled her eyes at him and said, "You should take care of yourself. Don't die." Yuan Yingying and Yen were quite confused as they watched her leave. Wasn't Zi Xian hired to protect Yen? Why did she leave just like that? Su Yu sighed. If she didn't leave, then he would surely be restrained. However, even if she left, he still had to be careful. After all, an all-creation old monster's senses couldn't be described with common sense. We are at the entrance, and the 100 Beast Valley is in the southwest. There are many demonic beasts in the valley, both strong and weak. All of the people who took the test are hunting demonic beasts in the valley, Yenner said obediently. Su Yu nodded. Yenner's information is quite important, so let's go to the 100 Beast Valley. The 100 Beast Valley was half a day's journey away from them. The deeper they went into the forest, the more they could feel the demonic energy in the air. It was the aura of demonic beasts. All of a sudden, a horned rabbit came out of the thicket in front of them. A level 1 fairy would surely be a great monster in the Jinlong world, but in the fairy confining forest, it was the lowest grade of monsters. Yen's eyes lit up. "It's a demonic horned rabbit, and it just so happens that it's suitable for me." Yen took out a small bow and was just about to take aim at the demonic horned rabbit when an ice-cold arrow shot out from several miles away and penetrated the demonic horned rabbit. The withered grass in its path was destroyed in an instant, while the demonic horned rabbit was blasted to pieces. Swoosh! An ice-cold person stepped on fallen leaves and quickly flew over. Chapter 776. Even though Xiao Lingjian was only from a branch family, his talent for cultivation was even greater than that of the Xiao family's young master. Xiao Li cast a sidelong glance at Su Yu and the others, then put the demonic horned rabbit back into her spatial ring. Xiao Li stared at Situ Yin and said with a faint smile, "Keep your eyes open when you walk. Bows and arrows don't have eyes. I won't be responsible if they hit you." Situ Yin, who was hiding behind Su Yu, stuck out her small head and stuck out her tongue. Su Yu said calmly, "Have you forgotten my warning to the Xiao family? If you dare to cause trouble for me, You'll surely regret it. His threat caused Xiao Li's expression to turn cold as she mysteriously said, "Surnamed Su, you won't be happy for long. I hope you'll be able to return alive." After saying that, she stepped on the air and her body flashed away. Situ Yin was a little angry. "Brother Su, teach her a lesson the next time she shows up." Su shook his head calmly. "Let's go. If she really dares to attack us, I don't mind making her regret it." After saying this, Su Yu and the others continued forward. All the low-level demonic beasts they encountered along the way were killed by the two girls. Not a single one was left alive. Su Yu, on the other hand, was completely uninterested. His goal was to hunt higher-level demonic beasts. In order to ensure that the assessment was foolproof, he needed to hunt as many powerful demonic beasts as possible. Roar! A soft roar reverberated in the air, causing the grass and trees to tremble. The impact of the sound wave caused Situ Yin and Yuan Ying to cover their ears at the same time. It's a level 2 fairy realm demonic beast, a lion-roaring beast. Situ Yin was delighted. As if she could kill a lion-roaring beast, she would be qualified. However, according to the rules, the demonic beasts had to be killed by themselves for it to be counted. If they used Su Yu's hands, it would be considered cheating and they would be eliminated immediately. As for how to determine whether he had borrowed someone else's help, the Red Blood Palace had countless means, and until now, there had never been a cheater who had managed to get away with it. Su Yu's role was to protect her, so that she would not be killed by demonic beasts in battle or die from encountering other dangers. The three of them hurried over and arrived at the entrance of the 100 Beast Valley. 7 or 8 demon beasts were fighting with a group of humans. It's the Tang family, which is ranked 9th. Situ Yin pursed her lips. She was a little disappointed that someone had beaten her to it. Among the 7 or 8 demonic beasts, the lion-roaring beast was the only level 2 fairy, and a female member of the level 1 fairy realm was trying to kill the lion-roaring beast. However, the disparity between them was too great, and the female fairy realm fairy couldn't even pierce through the lion-roaring beast's fur. Instead, her eardrums were shattered by the lion-roaring beast's roar. Letting out a blood-curdling scream, the sword in his hand loosened, losing its ability to attack. However, in the midst of battle, how could the demonic beasts give her the chance to cushion the pain? He pounced forward, and his huge lion claws ruthlessly clawed at the woman's abdomen. The claws were as sharp as daggers. He cut the woman into pieces. 8th sister, the family's expert who was watching over the battle, was at the level 3 fairy realm. When he saw that the situation was far from good, he took out his sword and slashed it at the lion-roaring beast's claw. Clang! When the sword landed on it, sparks flew, and only a layer of hair was shaved off. The lion-roaring beast let out a pained roar, and it became even more ferocious. It extended its claw forward and tore the female fairy into 2 pieces, starting from her abdomen. 8th sister. The youth's eyes widened as he angrily roared and started fighting with his sword. After a dozen exchanges, he finally found the lion-roaring beast's weak point. He then stabbed his sword into its eyes and killed it. Even though his cultivation was higher than the lion-roaring beast's, he couldn't kill it in a short time, and he could only watch helplessly as his 8th sister died. The 8th sister had wanted to kill it once and for all, so she volunteered to give it a try. However, she didn't expect that the youth, who was guarding her, wouldn't be able to save her from the demonic beast in time. What was even more pitiful was that he was only a level 3 fairy, so killing a level 2 fairy roaring beast was meaningless. The whole family's fighting spirit quickly disappeared, and as they looked at their 8th sister's tragic death, they all became depressed. Similar scenes were playing out in every corner of the fairy confining forest. If they were even slightly careless, they would die at the hands of the demonic beasts. Su Yu and the others passed by them and entered the valley. The Situ family's juniors didn't stay too far away from them, and they followed them as they killed demonic beasts. The 100 Beast Valley was extremely vast, and it had once been a giant meteorite crater. Because the meteorite contained all kinds of peerless starry skies, it was filled with lush spiritual herbs. As time passed, Many demonic beasts were attracted to it, and it became known as the 100 Beast Valley. The valley was divided into the outer section, the middle section, and the inner section. The outer section was usually occupied by level 2 to level 3 fairies, and most of the examinees hunted in the outer section. As for the middle section, it was occupied by level 4 fairies. Only the inner section was extremely dangerous, as it was occupied by level 5 fairy demonic beasts. It was even rumored that level 6 fairy demonic beasts had once appeared there. No one had ever dared to enter the inner section, as those who did would usually die. After he understood all of this, Suyu got lost in his thoughts. If he was alone, he would be able to easily enter the inner section, but he had Yuan Yingying and Situ Yin with him, so he had to be careful. He had witnessed the Tang family's tragedy. Demonic beast bodies were much more powerful than humans, and if he was careless, he would regret it for the rest of his life. As he pondered this, he stepped into the outer section, and he could already faintly see some traces of the family's activities. The roars of demonic beasts could be heard everywhere, as well as the roars of humans. "Brother Su, let's hunt here." Situ Yin was eager to give it a try. Suyu nodded. The demonic beasts in this area were perfect for them, as if they continued forward, they would encounter powerful demonic beasts that would be difficult for them to kill. Three-horned wolves are rushing over. Situ Yin cried out involuntarily. From afar, they could see 3 horned wolves fleeing from the outer section, and they seemed quite flustered. When they saw Su Yu and the other 2 standing in the middle of the road, they pounced at them. The horned wolves were level 2 fairy demonic beasts, and if they managed to kill them, they would have passed the test. "Let me deal with the one in the middle." Situ Yan's small eyes were filled with excitement. She took a deep breath, then took out a white formation flag from her pocket and stuck it into the ground. Suyu raised his brows slightly. A formation flag? He wasn't unfamiliar with such an object. The white vital energy emitted a white halo, then shot out a bolt of lightning, which bombarded the horned wolf's body. The horned wolf's whole body went numb, but its ferocious gaze didn't decrease. Instead, it became more ferocious as it pounced at Situ Yan. Fear appeared on Situ Yan's face, but she clenched her teeth and forced herself to stay calm. She then took out a red formation flag from her pocket and stuck it into the ground in front of her. The red formation flag flickered and shot out a flame, which struck the horned wolf's body. The intense burning pain caused the horned wolf to howl miserably. However, its ferocious gaze became even more intense, and it dashed forward. Situ Yin took out 2 formation flags, one green and one silver, and stuck them into the ground in front of her. They formed a line with the previous white and red formation flags. The 4 formation flags, which had different colors and were as big as a palm, all shot out attacks of different colors. The white one was a thunderbolt, the silver one was a lightning bolt, the red one was a raging flame, and the green one was a hurricane. Wind, fire, thunder, and lightning were the 4 natural energies of the world. These 4 energies were relatively weak, and while they might be effective against a level 1 fairy, they weren't enough to deal with a horned wolf. However, the 4 formation flags shot out continuously. The burning pain, numbness, and resistance caused the horned wolf to howl, then turn around and run away. Situ Yan's face lit up. She took out a yellow formation flag from her pocket and stuck it into the ground. Rumble. The horned wolf's surroundings were suddenly filled with earth pillars, which were several dozen feet long. They formed a cage and trapped the horned wolf within it. The horned wolf's attacks were ineffective, and it continued howling in the cage. Meanwhile, the 4 formation flags, which were made of wind, fire, thunder, and lightning, continued to attack it. In the end, the horned wolf was tortured to death. "Haha, my 4 divisions formation has been successfully completed." Situ Yin placed her hands on her hips and laughed heartily. Yuan Yingying's expression changed. Jealousy, resentment, and jealousy appeared on her face. "So, you are a formation master. It's no wonder that they paid such a high price to send you to the Red Blood Palace." A formation master? Suyu was curious about Situ Yan's potential. Situ Yin stuck out her chest and raised her snow-white neck. "That's right. The 4 divisions formation success means that I've become a primary formation master, and the Red Blood Palace will surely nurture me well. Yuan Yingying pouted and glared fiercely at the horned wolf, which was charging at her. The ferocious horned wolf didn't even let out a miserable shriek, as its eyes quickly dimmed and it fell to the ground. Situ Yin, who was still feeling complacent, was startled. What technique did you use? You're just a half fairy, yet you managed to easily kill a level 2 fairy? She found this to be inconceivable. Yuan Yingying stuck out her ample breasts proudly and crossed her arms in front of her chest. She then said proudly, "Brother Su taught me this technique. I can kill even a level 3 fairy, let alone a level 2 fairy. Is she so amazing?" Situ Yin widened her eyes, and when her gaze fell on Su Yu, her eyes became filled with adoration. She then hugged Su Yu's arm and shook it. "Brother Su, I also want to learn it." Yuan Yingying immediately regretted her decision, especially when she saw Situ Yin hugging Su Yu's arm and fawning over him. She was so infuriated that her chest started shivering. "You shameless be asterisk starred. Let go of my brother Su. Why should I teach him to you?" Situ Yin glared at her and said, "I'm begging you, not you." Yuan Yingying was infuriated, and she hugged Su Yu's other arm as she glared at Situ Yin. Black lines appeared on Su Yu's forehead as he thought. Even if these two girls want to quarrel with each other, they should still look at the situation first. Su Yu's expression suddenly changed, and his expression became grave as he looked at the depths of the valley. It seemed like they noticed a change in Su Yu's expression, so they stopped quarreling. When it finally calmed down, they noticed that the ground beneath their feet was trembling slightly. The gravel on the ground started rising like waves. A great wave of pressure came from the depths of the valley. Fear appeared in the eyes of the remaining horned wolf, and it started rushing out crazily. At the same time, the insects in the depths of the ground all came out of the ground and started running out of the valley. What happened inside? Yuan Yingying and Situ Yin both grabbed Su Yu's hands. They were both nervous and restless. Su Yu's gaze became grave, and as he retreated, he shook his head and said, "I don't know, but we must leave the valley." Swoosh, swoosh. As they were retreating crazily, a large number of people flew out of the depths of the valley. Chapter 777. There were at least several hundred of them. It was a majestic sight to behold. Finally, Su Yu discovered a group of demonic beasts on the horizon of the valley. Some of them were birds, while others were beasts on the ground. They were like a flood that covered the horizon. There were at least 10,000 of them. Beast! Beast-tide! Situ Yan's body shivered as she stammered. Yuan Yingying's beautiful eyes also shrunk to the size of a needle. Her small hands were trembling, revealing the fear in her heart. The beast-tide wasn't unfamiliar to them, as it was described in books as a calamity. In JoJo's history, there were countless records of great cities and factions being destroyed in a single night because of the beast tide. The fairy confining forest was the origin of the beast tide. Almost 90% of the beast tide came from the fairy confining forest. The beast tide was terrifying because no matter how strong an expert was, he wouldn't be a match for an army of countless beasts. Once he was engulfed by the beast tide, he wouldn't even have a corpse left behind. There was only one way to save him from the beast tide. Escape. Escape at all costs. Su Yu's expression became grave. Even a divine master would flee when facing such a great beast tide. "Let's leave quickly." Su Yu grabbed one of them by the waist, then turned around and fled. In the twinkling of an eye, he had already traversed several thousand miles. However, when he looked behind him, he saw that the beast tide wasn't getting further away. Instead, it was getting closer. Ah! Miserable screams echoed from behind him. Those who were flying in the sky were being chased by swift birds, which tore them apart and devoured them one by one. As for those who were running on the ground, they weren't able to escape from the powerful beasts. After all, those who were at the forefront of the beast tide were all beasts with great speed and movement techniques. "Ah! I will risk my life against you." A level 3 fairy realm genius, upon realizing that he couldn't escape, decided to turn around and face them head-on. He took out a sword with each of his hands and imbued it with his vital energy. The demonic beasts that were charging at him were all cut down, leaving behind a bloody path. However, the demonic beasts beside him were still charging forward crazily. After a short while, his body was engulfed by the beast tide. Following that, a blood-curdling scream came to an abrupt end. People's screams echoed one after another, as they were all killed by the beast tide. Just a moment ago, there were more than 100 people, but now there were only 40 left. Moreover, they were being devoured by the beast tide at an extremely fast speed. As for Suyu, he was gradually left behind. It was already extremely difficult for him to travel alone, let alone with 2 other people. "Brother Su, put me down. I'll escape by myself." Yuan Ying bitter lip. "Take Situ Yen with you. That way, you'll still have a chance." Situ Yan's pretty face turned pale. She clenched her teeth and said, "Brother Su, put me down. The beast tide was unexpected. My mother won't blame you if I die in the beast tide." At such a critical moment, they all knew that they had implicated Suyu. Suyu's expression became gloomy, and he was just about to wait and see. After all, the Red Blood Palace's people must have detected the appearance of a terrifying beast tide, and those divine master experts wouldn't just sit by and watch as their clansmen were annihilated. Soon, he would make his move and defeat the beast tide. Right at this moment, a sharp cry suddenly tore through the sky. The human geniuses who were fleeing for their lives shuddered violently as the true chi within their bodies froze. Those who were running on the ground stumbled and fell to the ground. Then, they were drowned by the beast tide army and trampled to death. Those who were flying in the sky were even more unlucky. Having lost their jinchi, they plummeted from the sky and were either devoured by the flying beasts or smashed into meat paste on the spot. In the blink of an eye, most of the geniuses had died a violent death. A small number of geniuses had survived, but their true energy had been frozen, so they couldn't run fast at all. One by one, they died. Suyu's vital energy was also frozen, and he couldn't even use his magical treasures. Fortunately, Suyu was still flying a low altitude, so he carried the 2 young girls and rolled on the ground. Then, he continued to flee unscathed. However, without the support of their true chi, they were like ants, unable to run fast. A great crisis suddenly descended. Suyu's heart sank as he examined his internal energy channel. It was not that his jinchi had solidified, but that his dantian had solidified, causing his jinchi to be unable to circulate. In Suyu's external dantian, the lake, which was the size of an acre, was also frozen. However, what made him overjoyed was that his inner dantian was still intact. Without hesitation, Suyu activated his inner dantian and activated the vital energy in his body. Then, he took out a pair of white wings with a flip of his palm and dripped a drop of blood on them. The wings became indistinct, turning into a phantom and fusing into Suyu's body. Shortly after, the muscles on Suyu's back wriggled, and a pair of snow-white wings grew out of thin air. As the wings flapped, a strong wind blew, and the beast tide behind them was blown back a little. Just after that, Suyu and the 2 of them disappeared without a trace, as if they had teleported. An angry roar echoed from the depths of the beast tide. The departure of Suyu and the 2 of them had infuriated the demonic beast, which had frozen all of its genius vital energy. A blood-red remnant shadow dashed out of the beast tide and chased after Suyu. The beast tide behind them became even more frenzied, and they all rushed out of the valley. 1,000,000 miles away, 3 people appeared out of thin air. They were Situ Yin and Suyu, who were still in a state of shock. Situ Yin stared at the giant wings on Suyu's back, and her eyes flickered with excitement. The blue water, 9 heaven wings. Brother Su, you still have such a priceless treasure. Her big eyes were filled with curiosity, and she extended her hand to touch it. My mother wanted to find one for me, but it was too rare, and it was not sold in the market. Apart from the Situ family, only the Shangwan family has one. I didn't expect that you would also have one. Yuan Ying snorted and said, "What's so special about it? You can't even imagine how amazing Brother Su is." Situ Yin glared at her and said, "Big-breasted woman, why are you speaking as if Brother Su is someone important to you? Ah, who are you calling a big-breasted woman? You flat-chested woman. Yuan Ying glared at her and bared her fangs. Situ Yin was immediately irritated. How dare you call me flat-chested? I will bite you to death, you big-breasted woman. Come on, come on. I will poke you to death. Yuan Ying wasn't willing to show weakness. The two girls, one on Suyu's left and the other on his right, started wrestling with each other. Suyu couldn't help but ask, "Sirs, can you get off my body before you start quarreling?" They were still in Suyu's embrace. Their faces became flushed, and they both stopped fighting. Suyu looked back at the valley and said, "The beast tide won't come out of nowhere. There must be a reason behind it. Let's retreat for now and wait for the beast tide to disperse before we come back to hunt demonic beasts." Just as Suyu expected, after half a day, the young palace mistress Kong Chan led the outer palace's emissaries to the 100-Beast Valley. Under the deterrence of a dozen divine masters, the beast tide, which had come out in full force, was forced back into the depths of the valley. In the inner part of the valley, Palace Mistress Kong Chan and the emissaries were in a cave, which had a powerful demonic energy lingering in it. There was a large number of soft and comfortable beast skins in the depths of the cave. There was a broken egg at the center of the beast's skins, which emitted a fishy smell. Palace Mistress, this is the egg of the level 6 fairy realm beast king, the devilish ice scarlet marten. It laid an egg, Elderly said as he waved his sleeves, which gave rise to a gentle breeze and flipped the egg over. The other side of the egg cracked open, and the yolk flowed out. "The egg is broken." Elderly's expression became gloomy. Every time the devilish ice scarlet marten lays an egg, there are always two eggs. One of them is broken, while the other one is missing. It seems like someone intruded into the cave and stole the egg. Then, he purposely broke one of the eggs to infuriate the devilish ice scarlet marten, which then drove a large number of demonic beasts to attack the challengers outside. This beast tide wasn't a natural disaster, but a man-made disaster. None of the family's disciples who entered the 100-Beast Valley were spared. Some families are willing to resort to any means possible to get to first place in the exam, and they even came up with such a vicious scheme, Elderly said in a deep voice. It was obvious that this was a scheme of a sinister family, which had killed almost half of the challengers. The number of casualties in this exam would probably set a new record. Palace Mistress Kong Chan was silent for a moment. "Let's go. Since the other party planned this, they surely wouldn't leave any traces behind. We just need to keep an eye on the devilish ice scarlet marten's egg, and we'll be able to find the mastermind behind this. That beast egg is quite valuable, and I believe that the mastermind behind this won't keep it for long. Since they dared to tamper with the Red Blood Palace's exam, they must have realized that there was no reason for them to let it go." Elderly hesitated for a moment before asking, "What if we find out that it was done by a certain family?" Palace Mistress Kong Chan replied without hesitation, "We will obviously exterminate a whole family, as it won't be difficult for us to support a new family." It was really difficult to believe that such cruel words as exterminating a whole family would come from the amiable-looking Palace Mistress Kong Chan. After the beast tide, the number of challengers had decreased greatly, and a large number of demonic beasts had also scattered in the forest. Suyu took the two women with him as he ran through the forest, looking for a suitable demonic beast to kill. One of them had relied on her soul power, while the other had relied on the formation's power to kill demonic beasts, which were at a higher level than them. They had already reached the qualification requirements, and now they were just trying to accumulate points so that they could get a good ranking. At noon the next day, Suyu and the others were chasing after a snow fox, which had a strange speed. It was a level 4 fairy. According to the rules, they would get 100 points for killing it, which was exactly what Suyu wanted. When Suyu saw that the snow fox was about to run into the bushes, he waved his hand. 4 spheres of similar size appeared above the snow fox's head, then shot out 4 light beams that trapped the snow fox within them. The snow fox bared its teeth ferociously, then used its claw to tear apart the light barrier. When it was about to escape, Suyu descended from the sky and thrust his right fist at it. Suyu's fist, which was powered by his full power, was as powerful as a level 5 fairy strike. The snow fox's head was crushed on the spot, and it died in an instant. Suyu curled his finger and threw its corpse into his spatial ring. Situ Yin and Yuan Yingying were dumbfounded, and their eyes widened in shock. A level 4 fairy snow fox had been killed in such a short time. His power was at least at the level 5 fairy level. Wow, Brother Su, you are so amazing. Situ Yan's eyes were filled with admiration. She had seen many talented experts in the Situ family, but it was the first time she had seen someone as monstrous as Suyu. She couldn't help but revere him. Suyu smiled and was just about to reply modestly when his ears suddenly twitched. There is a commotion ahead of us. Let's go over and take a look. After the time it would take to brew half a cup of tea, they arrived at the foot of a mountain. All of the Shangwan family's geniuses were gathered here. They hadn't rushed to the 100 Beasts Valley immediately, so they had managed to avoid the beast tide. However, they were in a precarious situation. They were now surrounded by a group of flame leopards. Flame leopards were level 3 fairy demonic beasts, and they liked to live in groups. 9 flame leopards had forced the 18 of them into a cave, which prevented them from flying away, so they could only defend themselves. Shangwan Fei and Zhang Fan were at the front, and they were trying their best to defeat the flame leopards, which were trying to charge into the cave. Zhang Fan was still fine, as his cultivation was at the level 4 fairy realm, so he could manage to deal with them. However, Shangwan Fei was in a difficult situation, as there were many burns on his body, and he had consumed a lot of vital energy. Brother Zhang, how much longer can you last? Shangwan Fei's expression became gloomy. Zhang Fan's expression became gloomy as he shouted, "How would I know? Your Shangwan family thinks that they are clever, and you drove away all the powerful people, leaving behind a group of incompetent disciples who can't fight well in the face of danger. Their fighting prowess has become a burden. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in such a passive situation." In the past, Zhang Fan wouldn't have dared to treat Shangwan Fei in such a manner. However, now that they couldn't escape this calamity, he vented all of his resentment. Shangwan Fei was quite bitter, and he said angrily, "It's all the Shao family's fault. If they hadn't launched a sneak attack and killed the level 5 fairy realm genius who was protecting us, a trifling group of flame leopards wouldn't have dared to hunt us down." The Shangwan family had also managed to invite a level 5 fairy realm genius. He was from the Soul Seizing Palace, and he was ranked 3rd among the Outer Sanctum's disciples. So, even if he didn't go through the external test, he could still enter the Red Blood Palace through the internal test. They had paid a great price to invite this famous Outer Sanctum's disciple, and they had assumed that they would be safe. But who would have expected that the Shao family would launch a sneak attack and kill him with an arrow? After losing their protection, they ended up being surrounded by a group of demonic beasts. What I regret the most is that I didn't leave with Su Yuxian. Zhang Fan was filled with regret. My power is greater than his, and I obviously have a brighter future than him. Dying in the immortal confining forest, fate really makes fools of people. Zhang Fan had always had a good impression of himself, and even now, he still looked down on Suyu. All of a sudden, the 9 flame leopards outside stopped their attacks and retreated, while flames started brewing in their mouths. Zhang Fan's expression changed drastically. Awful. They are planning to burn us alive in the cave. They could still use their vital energy to block the flames for a short time, but if they continued for a long time, they wouldn't be able to endure it. Will I, Shangwan Fei, really die here? Shangwan Fei's face was filled with grief. He recalled how he had been in high spirits before he had left, and how he had vowed to enter the Red Blood Palace. But now, he had been reduced to being roasted alive by a group of beasts. Bang! Bang! At this moment, a commotion broke out outside the cave. 3 flame leopards were bombarded by a group of afterimages, and they were instantly destroyed. At the same time, a man wearing a bamboo hat appeared. He was holding 2 flame leopards in his left and right hands, and as he clenched his fist, the flame leopards' necks were snapped. In the blink of an eye, 5 flame leopards had been killed. Such a ruthless method shocked Zhang Fan and the others, causing their expressions to change drastically. half of the flame leopards, which had almost killed them, had been killed in the blink of an eye. When the rest of the flame leopards saw that the situation was far from good, they fled in fear. Humph! The man in the bamboo hat snorted coldly. He didn't make any moves, but he looked at the 4 fleeing flame leopards. Plop! Zhang Fan and the others were horrified to see that the fleeing flame leopards suddenly went limp, and they fell to the ground with a miserable howl before they died. Brother Su here. One of them had a cute face and an unusually mature body, while the other had a clever face and a slender body. They each held 2 flame leopards, and they passed them to Su Yu in a fawning manner. Su Yu opened a ring and collected all the flame leopards on the ground. One level 3 fairy realm beast was worth 40 points, so 9 of them would be worth 360 points. Situyen? Shangguan Fei's pupils contracted. So, this man in the bamboo hat is the freak who defeated the Xiao family? Reverence appeared in Zhang Fan's eyes as he walked out of the cave and bowed to Su Yu. Brother, thank you for saving our lives. Shangguan Fei also quickly walked out of the cave. He was respectful and reverent. Su Yu took a look at them, then looked at the Shangguan family's disciples, who were walking out of the cave one after another. He then said expressionlessly, I only saved you because of Shangguan Yunk. That's all. Big brother? Shangguan Fei was startled, but he soon felt relieved. My big brother has many friends, and this freak, who doesn't show his face, must be an outer sanctum disciple of one of the 18 factions. Let's go. So you turned around and left. Shangguan Fei asked, Wait, may I ask your name? Su Yu curled up the corners of his mouth. He's just a person who was driven away by the Shangguan family. You don't want to know. Su Yu waved his hand without turning his head. However, Shangguan Fei hurriedly said, Brother, we ran into the Sidhu family's people a moment ago, and they requested us to meet them as soon as possible. Their situation isn't good. Situ Yan's expression became tense. What's bad? Explain it clearly. Shangguan Fei replied solemnly. They are being chased by the Xiao family. We want to help them, but we can't even protect ourselves. What? The Xiao family attacked them? Situ Yan clenched her fists tightly. She was quite anxious as she asked, Where are they? When did this happen? Shangguan Fei replied, It's already been 2 hours. If we're lucky, the Xiao family probably hasn't caught up to us yet. The Xiao family has announced that you were killed in the Beast Tide, and the Sidhu family's people have lost their will to fight. So, it's best for you to meet them as soon as possible. Otherwise, the situation won't be good for you. Su Yu furrowed his brows slightly. The Xiao family's people didn't go to the 100 Beast Valley, so how could they know that they were killed there? There must be something fishy about this. Could it be that the Beast Tide was caused by the Xiao family? The scene of him entering the forest and running into Xiao Li appeared in his mind. She had even told him that he wouldn't be able to leave alive. Now, it seemed like the Xiao family was the most suspicious one. An ice-cold glint flickered in the depths of his eyes. The beast tide that they had caused had almost killed Su Yu. The blue water 9 heavens wings, which were worth 100,000 crystals, had been wasted because of it. He had already warned the Xiao family time and time again not to provoke them. It seemed like the warning on the stone pillar wasn't enough, so he could only use blood to pay them back. Yin earning, let's go. Su Yu's expression was calm, while he spoke in a deep voice. Situ Yin spoke anxiously. Brother Su, you must save them. I'm begging you. Ying also sympathized with her. Although she had always bickered with Situ Yin, she didn't dislike this young miss who didn't put on airs. She then said, Brother Su, please help her. Su Yu held their waist with one hand, while a cold smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. Is saving them enough? Since the Xiao family's people think that their fists are the greatest and that they can rule over everything, then I will teach them what despair is. Yuan Yingying's gaze flickered. Brother Su, what do you want? Chapter 778. Southwest. The 18 boys and girls of the Situ clan fled towards the immortal confining forest with great difficulty. All of them were in low spirits and had sorrowful expressions as they ran through the muddy mountain forest. Compared to the family's disciples who had entered the 100 Beast Valley, they could be considered lucky. They had followed Su Yu and the others, and when they reached the 100 Beast Valley's entrance, they discovered that a beast tide was occurring there. It was because of this that they managed to escape in time, but Situ Yin, Su Yu, and the others never came out again. Needless to say, they were probably killed in the beast tide. However, what put them in a dangerous situation was that they were discovered by the powerhouses of the Xiao family. With Xiao Lingjian as the leader, the group of Xiao family's experts immediately chased after them. If Su Yu was still alive, they would be afraid of his existence and would more or less restrain themselves. However, since Su Yu had perished in the beast tide, they had no more misgivings. One of the female tribesmen didn't manage to escape in time and was killed on the spot. There was also a male clansman who was swept away by a venomous wind snake that had escaped from the beast tide and became the dried fruit food of the beast. There were pursuers behind them, and there was a scattered beast tide midway. In front of them was the endless, immortal, confining forest. Their hearts sank. "You guys go first." All of a sudden, the level 3 Fairy Situ clan's leader stopped in his tracks. He had a big bow on his waist, and his expression was grave and stern. "Big Brother Geo, we will be able to escape the fairy confining forest in another 2 hours. Then, we will be discovered by the Red Blood Palace, and they won't dare to attack us," one of the clansmen said in alarm. He already knew what this clansman wanted to do. Situ Geo shook his head slightly and said, "We don't have enough time. The Xiao family's overall strength is far greater than ours. If we continue to run like this, no one will be able to save us. I'll stay here and attract their attention. You guys try to buy some time to escape." The clansmen's hearts were filled with sorrow. Were they, the juniors of the Situ clan, really going to fall to the fate of being slaughtered? If the beast tide hadn't suddenly arrived and caused Su Yuxian's death, the Xiao family wouldn't have dared to mess around. "Big Brother Geo, take care." The clansmen bowed respectfully. Using the darkness of the forest, they quickly left. Situ Geo took a deep breath and leaped onto an ancient tree. His eyes were bright and full of expression as he looked around. There was a sharp black arrow at the tip of his finger, and he quietly knocked it on the bowstring. He was ready to shoot the moment he discovered anyone from the Xiao clan. "It's worth it to kill a member of the Xiao clan before I die," Situ Geo thought to himself. Suddenly, a black shadow flashed in the forest below him. Situ Geo's eyes turned cold. He pulled the bowstring and lowered his head to look around. However, at this moment, a strong gust of wind came from above. "Not good, I've been tricked." Situ Geo's expression changed. His opponent had long since discovered him. The figure below him had only attracted his attention. The true attacker was above him. Situ Geo subconsciously raised his palm to attack, only to hear a cold snort. "You overestimate yourself." Bang! In an instant, a tsunami-like force slammed down, and his arm broke with a crack. His opponent's powerful palm force was like a hot knife through butter as it struck his shoulder armor. Crack! Starting from his shoulder blade, half of his skeleton shattered layer by layer. His flesh also exploded like magma. In the intense pain, Situ Jiu lost his balance and fell from the ancient tree. His eyes reflected the top of the tree that was getting further and further away, as well as the cold face standing there with his hands clasped behind his back. Xiao Lingjian, the young master of the Xiao family. His heart was filled with unwillingness, resentment, and grief. Situ Geo fell heavily to the ground. The powerful impact had almost shattered his broken body. His mind was in intense pain, and he fainted on the spot. Swoosh! Swoosh! In the darkness, the Xiao family's juniors chased after him and surrounded the tree respectfully. "Umph! You deserve to die, yet you still tried to plot against us." It's fortunate that Brother Ling Jian noticed it first. A level 3 fairy realm young girl kicked the unconscious Situ Yin. If Suyu had been here, he would have recognized her as the young girl who had just burned her clothes with a single punch. Swoosh! Xiao Ling Jian clasped his hands behind his back and calmly glanced at Situ Geo. His gaze locked in the direction in which the Xiao family had escaped. He then said apathetically, "Don't blame us for killing you. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for not knowing how to appreciate our kindness. Originally, We could have forgiven you just by killing Situ Yin, but it was because of your struggle that we had no choice but to kill you as well. In their minds, it was because they didn't want to let Situ Yin die without putting up a fight. Instead, they allowed Su Yuxian to embarrass the Xiao family. The young girl, whose clothes had been burned, clenched her teeth. She was filled with hatred as she said, "Brother Lingjian, let's quickly chase after them and kill them all. Our Xiao family has never suffered such humiliation, and the Sidu family must pay for it with their blood." Shame appeared in the eyes of the Xiao family's juniors, and they all felt somewhat restless. Xiao Hu, who had been crippled by Su Yu's punch, asked hesitantly, "Shouldn't we first check whether the bamboo hat man is still alive? If he's dead, then it'll be fine. But if he's still alive, and he learns that we're chasing after the Sidu family's genius, then he will probably put us in danger." His words resonated with many people. Since they didn't see Su Yu's corpse, there was a lingering shadow in their hearts. Slap! As a blue light flickered, the young girl, whose clothes had been burned, flickered over and slapped his face. Her pretty face became hideous as she said, "Don't praise him and belittle us. Let alone the fact that he died in the beast tide. Even if he didn't die, so what? There are so many of us here, so why should we be afraid of him? If he's still alive, then I will personally kill him." The young girl clenched her teeth and spoke in a stern voice. However, at this moment, an apathetic voice suddenly transmitted from above their heads. "You want to kill me?" The voice suddenly transmitted to them, and it seemed like it came from all directions, causing them to lose track of where it came from. However, the Xiao family's expressions stiffened when they heard the familiar voice. That voice, it's definitely the bamboo-hatted man. He didn't die. Xiao Lingjian's eyes flickered as he looked at the forest behind him. His pupils flickered as he asked, "You didn't die?" A man wearing a black bamboo hat walked out from the depths of the darkness like a ghost. Behind him were two beautiful girls, one on the left and one on the right. The slender young girl on his right side was none other than Sidu Yin. Suyu looked at him and revealed a faint smile. His smile seemed quite evil as he asked, "Are you disappointed that I didn't die? Or can I ask you how you know that we died in the 100 Beast Valley? I don't remember running into any of your Xiao family's people before I entered the valley." His question caused the expressions of the Xiao family's people to change slightly. After all, they were clearly aware of why the beast tide had appeared. This was why none of the Xiao family's people had died in the 100 Beast Valley. Xiao Lingjian looked at Suyu coldly and said, "I'm not disappointed. I just wanted to kill you once again. As for why I knew that you entered the 100 Beast Valley, I have nothing to say." As Suyu observed everyone's expressions, he curled up the corners of his mouth and said, "Sure enough, the beast tide was caused by you." A chilly aura, which was mixed with killing intent, emanated from Suyu's body. All of the Xiao family's people felt as if they were facing a great enemy, and their hearts shivered as they looked at Suyu. In their eyes, Suyu's fighting prowess could be considered monstrous. The young girl, who was standing behind Xiao Lingjian, shivered as she glared at Suyu. It was as if she was looking at her mortal enemy. She pointed the sword in her hand at him and gnashed her teeth as she asked, "You shouldn't have forgotten who I am, right?" Suyu cast a glance at her and replied, "Yes, I do. My clothes were burned." His words infuriated her and infuriated her. "Then, do you know what I will do to you?" Suyu shrugged his shoulders indifferently, then squinted his eyes and swept them over the Xiao family's people. He then said, "You should all remember my warning to you. Don't cause trouble for me, or else an unexpected accident will happen to you in the fairy confining forest." He then added, "I assumed that you would listen to me, but it seems like you're too confident and won't listen to me. Since this is the case, I can only use my own method to warn you," Suyu said calmly. The young girl was so angry that she laughed. "Why don't you take a look at your current situation first? Do you think that we will fight you one-on-one like we did in a spar?" Suyu shook his head. "I obviously won't, but if you think that having more people is your only advantage, then you can say goodbye to me." "Ew. Huh." The young girl laughed angrily, but her laughter came to an abrupt end. Her body was limp on the ground, and her eyes were dull and lifeless. Her face still had the same expression as when she was alive. A level 3 fairy had just died, inexplicably. The Xiao family's people felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar, and their whole body shivered. Xiao Lingjian's pupils contracted as he looked at Su Yu and said, "Soul attacks. You are a soul prodigy." Su Yu didn't reply to him, but continued using soul attacks. When Yuan Yingying saw this, she immediately joined them and started using soul attacks together with Su Yu. The level 3 fairies had priority in killing them. Another level 3 fairy fell. "Don't kill me. I was wrong. I will withdraw from the test. Please let me off." In just a split second, the remaining 4 level 3 fairies were killed on the spot. The rest of the Xiao family's juniors shivered in fright. A terrified scream rang out. The Xiao clan's juniors were truly scared out of their wits, and they fled in all directions in terror. The group of people split up and fled in different directions. "Don't split up." Shock appeared on Xiao Lingjian's face as he shouted anxiously. The forest was now filled with the beast tide, and it was only because they had a large number of people that the hidden demonic beasts didn't dare to attack them. When his words echoed out, a female fairy, who was running away alone, was bitten by a hideous-looking earthworm that came out of the ground and dragged into the depths of the ground. Such a scene quickly played out, but the more it played out, the more frightened they became, and the more they started fleeing. Xiao Lingjian's gaze became ice-cold as he looked at Su Yu with killing intent. "Su Yuxian, you are about to die." Su Yu shrugged his shoulders and said to the 2 women, "Yingying, take Situ Jiu with you and chase after the Situ family's people. Then, quickly return to the stone pillar. There are still many powerful demonic beasts in the forest." They had already killed their targets, which meant that they had passed the first round of the test, so they didn't need to continue risking their lives in the forest. "Brother Su, you should be careful. I will wait for you at the stone pillar." Situ Yin bit her red lips, while worry appeared in her eyes. In the twinkling of an eye, the 2 of them had left, leaving Su Yu and Xiao Lingjian alone. "I should have taken your life at the stone pillar." Xiao Lingjian's gaze was filled with killing intent as he charged at Su Yu. Crack! Crack! Many bone-cracking sounds echoed out of his body, and in an instant they reached 58. This was 9 more than when they had fought at the stone pillar. He had hidden a part of his power at that time. "Die!" Xiao Lingjian thrust his palm at Su Yu. His palm possessed a shocking might, and it was even more powerful than a level 5 fairy's fleshly body. If it had been anyone else, they would have been killed by such a powerful attack. However, it was a pity that his opponent was Su Yu. Chapter 779. Xiao Lingjian furrowed his brows and asked, "What power do you have?" Su Yu laughed and clenched his fist. The air currents in the surrounding space were instantly sucked out and gathered around Su Yu's palm. They were compressed into a pitch-black ribbon. Compressed air to the extreme? This is a middle-grade legendary cultivation technique. Xiao Lingjian's expression changed. Su Yu opened his mouth and uttered the word "fight," while the black sphere, which was revolving quickly in his palm, flashed towards Xiao Lingjian. Both of them used legendary cultivation techniques. Su Yu's cultivation technique was at the top class of the first stage, while Xiao Lingjian's was at the lower class of the first stage. Bang! The black ball exploded, releasing an extremely powerful sound wave that radiated in all directions. A gale swept across the sky, and ancient trees were sent flying. Yuan Yingying and Situ Yin, who had already flown several hundred miles away, also sensed the powerful sound waves and couldn't help but look back. Xiao Lingjian didn't retreat when he was attacked by the sound waves. He shouted in a low voice and used his all-conquering fist to split the sound waves apart. When the sound wave dissipated, Xiao Lingjian's body was still surrounded by the remnant airflow. Apart from his torn robe and his fists, there were only a few shallow bloodstains on his body. Su Yu's legendary level cultivation technique's progress was 2 levels higher than his opponent's. However, they were evenly matched. The Buddhist Saint's 8 characters was a mid-grade legend rank cultivation technique, while the 100-bone demonic tempering technique was a high-grade legend rank cultivation technique. "Who are you?" How could a rogue cultivator have a mid-grade legendary cultivation technique? It's extremely difficult for the 18 Sect's Outer Sanctum's disciples to come into contact with it, and among the powers that aren't from the 18 Sects, only my Xiao family has a high-grade, incomplete scroll. Xiao Lingjian's pupils contracted, and his expression became grave. Legendary-level cultivation techniques were not commonly seen in the 18 Blessed and Heavenly Lands. Most of the outer disciples of the 18 Sects practiced low-tier legendary cultivation methods. Middle and high-tier ones were far behind them. Low, mid, and high. The difference between the three types of cultivation techniques was huge, which could be seen from the exchange just now. Even a level 7 Fairy Realm expert could kill a level 7 Fairy Realm expert, yet he was only on par with a level 7 lower-tier expert. However, they couldn't help but admit that Xiao Lingjian's hidden fighting prowess was quite great, and it was comparable to a level 7 fairy. However, it was a pity that Su Yu had easily neutralized the attack, which was supposed to kill him. I'll interrogate you after I capture you. Xiao Lingjian's expression sank, and he took out a talisman with his right hand. It emitted an astonishing spiritual pressure, and one could faintly sense a divine master's power. This talisman was not meant to attack, but to confine. My father didn't hesitate to spend 300,000 crystal stones to buy this talisman from the black market. It's impossible for anyone below the middle stage Divine Master realm to escape from it, and it was originally meant for me to trap my enemies and flee for my life. But now, I can use it to capture you. Xiao Lingjian threw caution to the wind. Su Yu's expression was calm, and he nodded slightly. Yes, I should indeed end this quickly. I shouldn't expose myself for too long. Xiao Lingjian felt restless in his heart. Could it be that he was still hiding his strength? With a thought, Xiao Lingjian immediately infused his true energy into the talisman and activated it. At the same time, Su Yu also moved. Time freeze. Xiao Lingjian, who was about to crush the talisman, froze on the spot. He was overwhelmed with shock in his heart, and he was unable to control his body. Su Yu calmly walked over, and an extremely sharp silk thread popped out of his sleeve. Xiao Lingjian felt a chill on his neck, and his head fell to the ground. His face was filled with fright. Even in death, he still didn't believe that he would die so easily. If he had known that the all-creation old monster Shuedi, as well as many almighty divine masters, had all been killed by him, he wouldn't have had such a thought. Su Yu took the talisman in his hand and revealed a satisfied smile. This talisman, which could even trap an early-stage divine master, was quite useful to him. After he took back the silk thread, he flicked his finger and turned Xiao Lingjian's corpse and head into ashes. He also took his spatial ring. After he had done all of this, Su Yu didn't let down his guard. Instead, he swept the area with his ice-cold gaze and revealed a cold smile. I've disappointed you, evil creature. Swoosh! A scarlet marten, which was 2 mountains away, jumped out in fright. It was extremely quick, and even Su Yu's soul eyes could only catch a glimpse of its afterimage. It was a scarlet marten, and it had been following Su Yu from afar. It was trying its best to hide its aura and keep a distance from him. It assumed that it had hidden itself well, but it didn't know that Su Yu's soul eyes could see through all obstacles, and he could even see it clearly from 10 mountains away. Previously, when he was chasing after the Sidhu family, even though he had noticed that it was following him, he didn't look into it. Now that he had dealt with it, how could he allow it to continue watching him? You want to escape? Su Yu's whole body flickered with lightning as he turned into a bolt of lightning and chased after it. Sizzle. 10,000 miles away. The scarlet marten was fleeing in the forest when a bolt of lightning suddenly struck it. It was so frightened that it let out a sharp cry. It then changed its direction and turned into a streak of light as it tried to escape. Since I'm already here, can you still escape? Su Yu spread his fingers and used the dry cloud 5 elemental formation, which turned into a light screen that engulfed the marten. However, the scarlet marten had a quick reaction, and it opened its mouth to bite the light screen. However, when it was about to bite the light screen, the space in front of it fluctuated, while 3 small golden swords appeared and struck its body. Ding, ding. When the small golden swords struck its body, they couldn't even cut through its fur. However, the energy contained in the small swords still managed to send its body flying. The Scarlet Marten was infuriated, and its ferocious energy surged. It used this energy to turn around and charge at Suyu. Its green eyes were filled with ferocity as it let out a sharp cry. Suyu was surprised. "Oh, did someone steal your beast egg? Did you think that it was me?" The Scarlet Marten was startled, and its green eyes were filled with shock. It then muttered, "Do you understand the Demon Clan's language?" "I understand a little," Suyu said. He had in his mind all the languages of the various clans, which Tianjizi had spent his entire life studying, and the Demon Clan's language was among them. The Scarlet Marten stopped and stared at Suyu. It then roared resentfully, "Despicable human! Return my beast egg!" At this moment, Suyu could roughly guess the Scarlet Marten's identity. It was a rumored grade 6 fairy in the 100 Beast Valley, the king of all beasts. It was probably the one who had started the beast tide. The mysterious light that had caused all of their vital energy to stagnate at the last moment must have been caused by this Scarlet Marten. Suyu shook his head. "I don't know anything about the beast egg. I'm afraid that I've found the wrong person. It must have been done by another group of humans. Their goal was to provoke you into starting the beast tide and killing the other humans." The Scarlet Marten came to a sudden realization, and the resentful look in its eyes disappeared. It then asked, "Is that so?" Suyu nodded calmly. "Since that's the case, I will spare your life. If you dare to follow me again, don't blame me for being merciless." As he raised his hand, the 3 small golden swords returned to his palm. However, just when Suyu let his guard down, 2 tree vines, which were as thick as an arm, suddenly sprang out from under his feet and bound his legs. At the same time, the Scarlet Marten raised its head, and its resentment, which had been restrained for a long time, erupted 100-fold. "Foolish human, even if it wasn't you, it was all because of you." After it spoke, the Scarlet Marten extended its sharp claws and tried to scratch Suyu's chest. It didn't feel that Suyu had let it go out of kindness. Instead, it pretended to be relieved and tried to kill Suyu. The tree vines under its feet were the tree demons that it had summoned in secret, and they were controlling Suyu's lower body. Everything had happened so suddenly and without any warning. Suyu's expression was calm and composed, but disappointment could be seen in the depths of his eyes. "I have already given you a chance." Swoosh! A yellow and blue pearl had suddenly appeared in Suyu's palm, and as he flicked it, it flew through the air and collided with the Scarlet Marten. The Scarlet Marten let out a miserable shriek as its chest was crushed by the pearl, which penetrated through its back. When the pearl fell on the ground, the whole ground shook intensely. Were you guarding against me?" The Scarlet Marten fell on the ground, while its eyes were filled with resentment. As Suyu's feet shook, a miserable shriek echoed out from the ground, which quickly weakened. The ancient vines that bound his legs were untied. Suyu sucked in the air and took the pearl back into his palm. He then asked calmly, "What do you think?" After he spoke, he waved the silk threads in his sleeves and beheaded the marten. At the same time, he stored the marten's corpse in his spatial ring. Suyu had forgiven it for starting the beast tide and putting him in danger because it had already lost its child. He didn't expect that a good person wouldn't be rewarded. Suyu shook his head, soared into the air, and left quickly. What he didn't know was that not long after he left, Zixin appeared like a ghost at the place where he had killed Xiao Lingjian. Her pretty eyes were filled with a cold glint as she clenched her teeth and said, "Time power, sound wave cultivation technique. It's him, Suyu. He's really in the Red Blood Palace." In the following day, Suyu hunted demonic beasts in the forest. He only hunted level 3 fairies and above, as many demonic beasts were wandering around due to the beast tide. Thus, he managed to hunt and kill more than 30 demonic beasts in one day. However, if he ran into any of the Xiao family's disciples, he would cripple all of their cultivations. It was obvious what it meant to lose one's cultivation in the fairy confining forest, which was filled with demonic beasts. As Suyu looked at the sky, he realized that 3 days were almost up. Su Yu tapped the ground lightly and flew back to the stone pillar. Meanwhile, Xiaoli was standing on a giant rock somewhere in the forest. She was frowning. 3 days were almost up, yet none of the family members had come to meet them. This was the place where they had agreed to meet up after 3 days. But now, there wasn't a single person here. What happened? Even a young master didn't come. Xiaoli felt that something was amiss, so she pondered the matter for a moment before she said, "The Shangwan family's level 5 fairy was killed, while the Sidhu family's bamboo hat man died in the 100 Beasts Valley. So, there shouldn't be any danger to the young master and the others." Xiaoli pondered this for a moment before she carried her giant bow and left. On the stone pillar, Madame Sidhu's face was filled with gratification. Her family members' casualties were much lower than what they had expected, and Situ Yin had also returned safely. 12 of them had successfully completed the first part of the exam. The only thing that was lacking was that Su Yu still hadn't returned. In comparison, the Shangwan family was still frowning. They had less than 8 people who had passed the first part of the exam, and the level 5 fairy they had hired had died. So, it would be difficult for them to give an explanation to the soul-seizing palace. Their only consolation was that they hadn't suffered any casualties, as the bamboo hat man had helped them resolve the crisis of being wiped out. "Father, that bamboo hat man's power is really outstanding. He managed to kill 9 blaze leopards by himself," Shangwan Yung said. The Shangwan family's master nodded. "Yes, I'm afraid that we have all underestimated his power. He isn't just a level 4 fairy, and he probably possesses the fighting prowess of a level 5 fairy. Yunk, you must invite him over, as I want to have a talk with him personally. We must rope in such a talented person." An odd look appeared on Shangwan Yung's face. "I heard hoodlums say that he helped us because of me. Could he be an old friend of mine?" The Shangwan family's master wore a faint smile. "I hope that's the case. I didn't expect that you would befriend such a talented expert." At this moment, a man wearing a bamboo hat flew over from the horizon. It was Su Yu, who had just arrived. Shangwan Yung's eyes lit up, and he quickly intercepted him. He then looked at him curiously, cupped his fists at him, and said, "Brother, thank you for your help. I thank you sincerely on behalf of the Shangwan family. May I know your name?" Chapter 780. Shangwan Fei's expression tightened as he looked over. He had asked Su Yu this question in person before, but all he received was a strange response. "You wouldn't want to know." Many people's eyes lit up as they curiously sized up the mysterious man in the bamboo hat before them. The battle prowess that had crushed the Shao family had left a deep impression on them. Lady Situ furrowed her brows. The Shangwan family's intentions were obvious, and they wanted to snatch a genius like Su Yu. Under the gaze of many people, Su Yu could no longer avoid them. After pausing for a moment, he raised his hand and took off the bamboo hat on his head, revealing his true appearance. His aged face stood out from the crowd of young geniuses, and his entire body seemed to be in high spirits. Even the young palace mistress and palace mistress Kong Chan, who were sitting calmly, couldn't help but look surprised. Lady Situ, the Shao family's master, and the other geniuses were all stunned. "Why is an old man? It's impossible. This is the Red Blood Palace's recruitment test, and it's only open to disciples below the age of 20. Has the Sidhu family gone mad? How dare you cheat in this aspect? No wonder this person's cultivation is so ordinary, but his strength is so strong. At such a young age, his experience, methods, and combat naturally far surpass us. The geniuses of the Shao clan were defeated in such an unjust manner." The crowd was bewildered, and their expressions gradually changed. Situ Yan's red lips opened wide in an exaggerated manner. She assumed that Su Yu's aged voice was due to his intonation. "Big-breasted woman, why is Brother Su so?" She wanted to say something, but hesitated. The impact on her heart was not small. "So old, isn't it?" Yuan Ying pursed her lips into a smile. "If you don't like it, then don't get close to Big Brother Su." She was more than happy to be able to drive away the flat-chested Situ Yin from Su Yu's side. Of course, it would be perfect if she could drive away Zi Xian as well. Situ Yin glared at him angrily. "You're the one who dislikes me. I'm just surprised. I'm a martial artist. Do I care about age? Age and appearance were no longer the same in cultivation. Martial artists were far more sensitive to age than mortals. However, the ones who were truly shocked were the Shangwan clan. Shangwan Yunk was startled, and his pupils contracted. A bitter smile appeared on his face as he asked, "Brother Su, why is it you?" The genius youth that his father had reminded him many times to invite into the Shangwan family was none other than Su Yu, who had been a guest of the Shangwan family previously. He had almost become a genius recommended by the Shangwan clan. However, the situation had changed, and the Shangwan clan had stripped him of his spot. In a sense, he was driven away by the Shangwan clan. Shangwan Fei's expression was equally interesting. He was dumbfounded and could not believe the figure in front of him. He could not reconcile it with the old man who had been forced to leave. He stammered, "How? How could it be him?" The Shangwan family's chief's brows twitched. He was slightly surprised. This young man in front of him looked familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. After a while, he finally recalled that this was the young man who was recommended by Yunk to join the Shangwan family. For a moment, his expression was complicated, alternating between red and green. Su Yu, whom he had forced to leave, actually possessed such shocking potential. Remorse, self-blame, embarrassment, and many other emotions welled up in his heart. Su Yu looked at Shangwan Yunk and said with a faint smile, "I'm really sorry that I didn't manage to greet you before." Shangwan Yunk opened his mouth, then turned his head to look at his father, whose face was now flushed with anger. He shrugged his shoulders bitterly and said, "I thank Brother Su for saving me on behalf of the Shangwan family." They finally understood why the plated bamboo hat man had saved the Shangwan family out of respect for Shangwan Yunk. Su Yu waved his hand at him calmly and said, "Brother Shangwan, your blue water, 9 heaven wings saved my life, so why should I thank you for saving your family?" He was just about to continue chatting with them when a fragrant fragrance assaulted his nostrils. Madame Situ came over to him and said with a smile, "Mr. Su, thank you for protecting Yin. Come back and recuperate your body, as the second part of the exam will soon begin." Su Yu nodded at Shangwan Yunk, then went back to the stone pillar. Shangwan Yunk went back to the family's stone platform with an odd look on his face. Everyone's expressions were quite interesting, especially the Shangwan family's chief, who was too ashamed to look his son in the eye. Shangwan Yunk felt quite carefree for some unknown reason. In the past, he had begged his father many times, but his father had stubbornly insisted on expelling him. Now, he had amazed the world with a single brilliant feat, and the Shangwan family had become a laughingstock. "Yunk, why didn't you introduce Mr. Su to us clearly?" the Shangwan family's chief asked in embarrassment. Shangwan Yunk shrugged his shoulders and said, I clearly told you about his potential. Father, you must take care of the family's juniors, so if you insist on doing this, what can I do?" The Shangwan family's chief's gaze became gloomy, and after a long while, he raised his eyes and looked at Su Yu with a complicated gaze. He then heaved a long sigh and said, "I misjudged him." It was almost impossible for him to invite Su Yu back. It was easy to drive him away, but difficult to invite him. After returning to the Situ family, Su Yu swallowed Madame Situ's elixirs and quickly recovered his vital energy. Situ Yin immediately came over to him and started chattering. She was quite curious about Su Yu's body's strange condition. Madame Situ also said, "Mr. Su, I'm not that talented, but I know a bit about alchemy. Why don't you stay in the Situ family? I want to find a way to help you recover." Even now, she still wanted to keep Su Yu in the Situ family. "Madam, I appreciate your kindness, but I've already found the focus of your illness. As long as I can make a breakthrough in my cultivation and recover my lifespan, my body will naturally recover to its previous state." Su Yu rejected her tactfully. Madame Situ sighed inwardly. Leaving him in the Situ family was really making things difficult for him. Time elapsed slowly, and almost everyone had arrived. As the Shao family's chief looked at the fairy confining forest, anxiety appeared in his eyes. None of the Shao family members had come back, but as he thought about Shao Li and Shao Lingjian, he wasn't really worried. With their power, they wouldn't face any danger. However, even when noon approached, they still didn't see anyone. "There is still a cup of tea left," Palace Mistress Kong Chan said calmly. Swoosh! At this moment, a woman flew over. It was Xiao Li. The Xiao family's chief felt slightly relieved, and he went over to her. Lear, you came back. Where are Ling Jian and the others? Why did you come back first? Shock appeared on Xiao Li's face as she asked. Family's chief, didn't they come back first? In an instant, the Xiao family's chief's body stiffened, and he felt like his heart had been plunged into ice. No, didn't you all agree to meet at a certain place and come back together? Xiao Li's face gradually turned pale, and her lips trembled. I followed your instructions and hunted high-grade, demonic beasts by myself, then met them at the appointed place. But before I left, none of them came back. I thought that they couldn't wait any longer and left first. Boom! A rumbling sound echoed in the Xiao family's chief's mind, and he was greatly shocked. Where are they? Xiao Li also felt restless, but she forced herself to calm down and comfort him. Family's chief, please don't be anxious. With Lingjian's power, no one can harm them. Perhaps they're just running in the forest because they can't catch up to me. The Xiao clan's master managed to regain some of his human color as he waited quietly. His eyes were filled with anxiety as he locked onto the direction of the celestial confining forest. Suddenly, a figure flew over from afar. Patriarch Xiao's pupils constricted, but when he looked over, he saw that it was the person hired by the Situ clan, Zixian. Zixian's body flickered elegantly, and she returned to Su Yu's side. She then transmitted her voice to him and said, After the test, let's have a private talk. I have something to discuss with you. Su Yu's heart thumped. Could it be that his identity had been discovered? There is still half the time it would take to brew a cup of tea. Palace Mistress Kong Chan swept her gaze over the Xiao family's stone pillar with a strange expression. After the beast tied, the disciples of the other great clans had suffered disastrous losses. Some of them had passed the 7th stage, but there were still some survivors. However, only one person from the Xiao clan had returned, and he occupied a stone pillar all by himself. It seemed very out of place. As time passed, the Xiao family's master's eyes became dry, and he stared fixedly at the confining immortal forest, hoping that Xiao Lingjian would come back with a large number of his clansmen. However, the immortal confining forest was dead silent. Time's up, Palace Mistress Kong Chan announced calmly. She stood up slowly and said, Reception elders, please count the people who have passed the test. Rub, rub. The Xiao family's master retreated several steps, and his last strand of hope was extinguished. Something unexpected must have happened to Xiao Lingjian and the others. There were only 2 possibilities as to why none of them managed to come back. They were either trapped, or they were all killed. Li, do you have any clues? Who did this? The Xiao family's master's voice was gloomy, and his expression was gloomy. Xiao Li's whole body shivered, and she looked around while shaking her head. She then suddenly noticed Su Yu, and she asked in surprise, Who is that old man? Why haven't I seen him before? He's Su Yuxian. Don't pay attention to him. Let me ask you, who did this? What? He's a plaited bamboo hat man. It's impossible. Xiao Li's eyes flickered. He was in the 100 Beast Valley when the beast tide occurred, and even if he had great abilities, it would still be impossible for him to escape. Well, Xiao Yueming furrowed his brows and fixed his eyes on Su Yu. He then asked in a deep voice, Are you saying that it's him? I'm not sure, but I can't rule out the possibility that he's trying to take revenge on the Xiao family. There are so many talented juniors here, and if there's anyone who could cause trouble for Xiao Lingjian and the others, it would be him, Xiao Li said coldly. The more she thought about it, the more suspicious she found Su Yu to be. An ominous glint flickered in Xiao Yueming's eyes as he took a step forward and crossed the stone pillar. He then stood on the Situ family's stone pillar and strode towards Su Yu. Where are my Xiao family's people? Where are they? Shock appeared on Madame Situ's face as he questioned Su Yu. Shock appeared on Madame Situ's face, and she used her divine master's power to counteract Xiao Yueming's aura. She then furrowed her brows and said, Xiao Yueming, you are going too far. Su Yu had descended on her stone pillar and interrogated her. How could the Situ family still have any face left? My Shao family's entire generation of geniuses has gone missing. Madam Situ, if you really want to stop me from finding out the truth, I'll accompany you to the end. Xiao Yueming's eyes were bloodshot, and he seemed like a wild beast that had fallen into a desperate situation. Madam Situ's heart shuddered, and she clenched her teeth. When she was about to obstruct him, Suyu shrugged his shoulders and wore a baffled look as he asked, Xiao family's master, you are really bewildered. All of your Xiao family's children are extremely talented, so why are you asking me about them when they didn't come back? Xiao Yueming spoke in a deep voice, Lad, I don't have any techniques to waste my breath on you, so I will only ask you one question. Were they? Suyu looked at him calmly and replied, I don't know. Xiao Yueming suppressed his killing intent and looked at the Situ family's juniors. He then asked coldly, What about you? Did any of you see them? The Situ family's juniors wore bewildered looks. They had been chased by the Xiao family, and it was only after Situ Jio had helped them escape that they managed to escape. So, how could they know about the Xiao family situation? Situ Jio was the only one who avoided his gaze. Even though he was unconscious, he still had a vague idea that it was the bamboo hat man, Su Yu, who had appeared and saved him. In other words, the bamboo hat man was the last person who came into contact with the Xiao family's disciples. Well, a divine master's eyesight was extremely sharp. Situ Jio's subtle changes in his expression couldn't be concealed from others. Swoosh! Xiao Yueming's figure flickered as he appeared in front of Situ Jio and pressed his shoulder. He then shouted at him, What do you know? Speak. Situ Jio was startled, and as he faced the divine master's powerful aura, his knees went soft and he almost fell to the ground. I don't know. Our Situ family's disciples were hunted by your Xiao family's disciples, and I was heavily injured by Xiao Lingjian. When I woke up, I was already here. What? Hunted by the Situ family's disciples? All of the families present were startled by this. Such a matter was prohibited by the Red Blood Palace, and now that it was openly stated, the Xiao family would surely face trouble. How dare you slander my Xiao family? Do you want to die? Xiao Yueming glared at him angrily and shouted in a deep voice. Situ Jio was so scared that his whole body shivered. Situ Yin was also afraid of him, but she still bit her lip and said, What a joke. Are all of our Xiao family's disciples blind? Don't you know who hunted us? Xiao Yueming looked at her with a warning gaze. At this moment, Shangguan Fei, who was in the Shangguan family's side, mustered his courage and said, Our Shangguan family can testify to this matter. The Xiao family's disciples also hunted us, and our level 5 fairies were assassinated by them. Later on, we witnessed them hunting down the Xiao family. Both sides could testify to this matter, so there was no doubt about it. Palace Mistress Kong Chan opened her eyes slowly, while her old eyes emitted a cold glint. Her amiable face was filled with dignity as she said, The Outer Sanctum's Law Enforcement Hall will investigate this matter, and once they confirm that the Xiao family has violated the rules, they will surely be punished severely. She then added, Xiao family's master, please return to the stone pillar. After a while, the Law Enforcement Hall will enter the fairy confining forest to look for the Xiao family's disciples and question them about this matter. The Red Blood Palace was already used to such fights, so they didn't want to investigate this matter. Moreover, none of the Xiao family's disciples had returned yet, so it was highly likely that they had all been killed. At most, this matter would be left unsettled. Xiao Yueming wasn't willing to accept this, and his gaze fell on Su Yu once again. He looked at him like a ferocious beast. He knew that the disappearance of Ling Jian and the others was surely related to him. But now, he couldn't do anything about it. He wasn't willing to go back, but he still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. Lier, you will take the test here, while I will go into the forest to look for them. If Ling Jian is harmed in the slightest, I will kill that lad. Xiao Lingjian was the Xiao family's sole disciple, so they couldn't afford to lose him. The invoice test started, and they all inspected the stone pillars they were in charge of. Elderly wore a faint smile as he inspected the corpses they had brought back. When it was Situ Yan's turn, Elderly said amiably, You are just a level 1 fairy, so you need to kill 20 demonic beasts at the same level as you. Is that enough? Take them out and let me inspect them. Situ Yin revealed a crafty smile. I only killed one. Elder Li's expression stiffened, and he looked at Lady Situ apologetically. There was such an obvious disparity between them, and he couldn't help her in front of Palace Mistress Kong Chan Swoosh. However, when Sidian took out a level 2 fairy demonic flame snake, Elder Li's pupils contracted slightly. He immediately took it and placed it on his palm, then stuck a talisman on the demonic flame snake's corpse. A strange scene then occurred, as numerous light spots appeared on the demonic flame snake's corpse. They were all wounds left by the demonic flame snake's attack. The light spots' colors are the same, and their vital energy fluctuations all belong to Situ Yin. The test proves that it was killed by Situ Yin alone, and no one else intervened, Elder Li said. If someone else had intervened, even if they had just trapped the demonic beast, they would have left different vital energy fluctuations on the demonic beast's body, which would have caused the light spot's colors to be different. When they heard this, the crowd wasn't surprised that Situ Yin had passed the test, but they were still amazed by her ability to kill demonic beasts at a higher level. Shangwan Yunk looked at Situ Yin and said, "It's rumored that the Situ family's eldest daughter is proficient in formations. I wonder if it's true." Upon hearing this, Shangwan Yunk was startled. Formations? This is the talent that the Red Blood Palace values the most. The Situ family really gave birth to an outstanding genius. Lady Situ wore a satisfied look as she looked at her daughter. Elder Li wore a smile as he inspected the Situ family's disciples one by one. There were 18 of them in total, and in the end, 12 of them passed the test. This was more than double the previous year's number. The reason for this was that the beast tide had caused a large number of low-grade demonic beasts to wander about, which made it easier to hunt them. Otherwise, their numbers would have been halved. However, Su Yu's appearance was also an important reason why many families were afraid of them, so they didn't try to kill them in secret. Finally, it was Su Yu and the other two's turn. Zi Xian threw a grade 2 fairy realm purple thunder deer at them. When Elder Li inspected it, he found it slightly strange, as he couldn't find any wounds on it. However, the vital energy fluctuations that were left on it clearly belonged to Zi Xian. Yuan Yingying also passed the test, and when Elder Li inspected her, his pupils contracted slightly. A soul attack. Elder Li took a deep look at Yuan Yingying, then squeezed out a gentle smile. In the end, Elder Li's gaze fell on Su Yu, and he said, "Take out the corpse." Su Yu looked at the surroundings and said, "There isn't enough space here. Elder Li, please have a look at my spatial ring." Many people were paying attention to him, and they were all startled when they heard this. How many demonic beasts did he kill? Elder Li was flabbergasted by this, and when he took the spatial ring and scanned its contents, his pupils contracted. There weren't many demonic beasts here, as there were only around 30 of them. However, every single one of them was a giant high-grade demonic beast. They were all at least grade 3 fairies, and there were only 9 blaze leopards, which seemed like they had been killed by Su Yu in passing. As for grade 4 fairy realm demonic beasts, there were more than 15 of them. What shocked Elder Li the most was that there were still 4 grade 5 fairies among them. If he knew that Su Yu only had a single day to hunt for demonic beasts due to various reasons, he would probably be even more astonished. Elder Li sucked in a breath of cold air. This wasn't the first time he had been in charge of guiding the envoys, but it was rare for him to hunt so many high-grade, demonic beasts. After all, such people who entered the outer sanctum were all outstanding geniuses and had great achievements. I found a good seedling, Elder Li thought inwardly. When Elder Li started calculating the points, he suddenly discovered that there was an unremarkable scarlet corpse among the giant demonic beasts. It was a scarlet marten. A scarlet marten? Elder Li was startled for a moment, and he recalled something in his mind. It seems like marten demonic beasts can only be found in the depths of the fairy confining forest. This place, it seemed like Elder Li suddenly recalled something, and his expression changed drastically. A scarlet marten? An evil-eye scarlet marten? His eyes shone with shock as he stared at the evil-eye scarlet marten's corpse with a grave expression. There was shock in his eyes, but there was also an indescribable heaviness in them. Elderly averted his gaze and looked at Suyu with a solemn expression. After the second round of the exam, you should stay here alone. Palace Mistress Kong-chan might come and talk to you. Suyu was startled. What did I do wrong? Elderly hesitated for a moment, then said in a grave voice, You made a grave mistake. You shouldn't have killed this evil Scarlet Martin. It had a special status, and you caused a great disaster by killing it. Chapter 781. The beast had wanted to spare Suyu's life, but since it was seeking its own death, it couldn't blame Suyu. All right. Suyu's expression was calm as he nodded. No matter how big of a disaster it was not as big as being hunted down by 6 all-creation's old monsters. The inspection of the pillars was soon completed, and the guide elder presented the inspection results to Palace Mistress Kong-chan. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, all the examinees' results were summarized. Palace Mistress Kong-chan's old face revealed a faint smile as she scanned the list of examinees. I didn't expect that the various families would have more examinees than before, even though they suffered heavy losses due to the beast tide. A rough count showed that around 40 people had passed the test. In the past, there were less than 20 people. This is especially true for the Situ clan. More than half of them are here. Palace Mistress Kong-chan could not help but glance at the Situ clan. She nodded with a smile. This action was seen by many families, and they were all envious and solemn. This meant that Palace Mistress Kong-chan was very satisfied with the Situ family's performance. I will announce the ranking of the points. Only the top 5 will be announced. Palace Mistress Kong-chan said, The 5th place goes to Shan Qilin, who killed 20 level 3 fairy realm demonic beasts. He got 800 points. The 4th place is Chunyu. He killed 23 level 3 fairies and got 920 points. The 3rd place is Zhang Fan. He killed 20 level 4 fairies and got 2,000 points. Zhang Fan nodded slightly. 3rd place was within the acceptable range. The 2nd place is Shaoli. She killed 20 level 5 fairies. She got 10,000 points. The crowd burst into an uproar. The only level 5 fairy would have to kill 20 demonic beasts of the same level. Shaoli frowned slightly. Only 2nd place? The ranking was out of his expectations. His eyes involuntarily turned to look at Suyu. Could it be him? 1st place, Suyu Xian, 9 grade 3 demonic beasts, 15 grade 4 demonic beasts, and 5 grade 5 demonic beasts. Total points, 30-10. The strange ranking stunned everyone present. 3,000 points were ranked before 10,000 points. What was going on? Even Lady Situ was stunned and confused. Is there a problem? If not, you can proceed to the next test. Palace Mistress Kong-chan said expressionlessly. Gritting her teeth, Shaoli braced herself and asked, May I ask, Palace Master, why are those with lower points than me ranked above me? Are there other rules to the ranking? Could it be that the demonic beasts he hunted had a hidden requirement to preserve their corpses intact? Palace Mistress Kong-chan shook her head and said, No, they are only ranked by points. Then why? Shaoli was unwilling to accept this. Such a ranking was really baffling. Palace Mistress Kong-chan replied calmly. It's because Su Yuxian didn't just kill the demonic beast mentioned above. He also killed another demonic beast that was outside of the region, a level 6 fairy realm demonic beast. What? Even Lady Situ was shocked. A level 6 fairy demonic beast? Swish, swish, swish. Many pairs of horrified eyes looked at Suyu. The fact that he was able to fight Xiao Lingjian to a draw had already made them think highly of him. But now, it seemed like they had completely underestimated this monstrous genius. As such, even Shaoli couldn't kill a level 6 fairy by herself. Shaoli was shocked, and fear appeared in her gaze as she looked at Suyu. However, she had been told by Xiao Yueming that she had to obtain 1st place in the 2 trials no matter what, as this matter was extremely important. Palace Mistress Kong-chan, level 6 fairy realm demonic beasts are outside of the region, so there aren't any points. So, even if he killed one, it can be considered as a wasted kill. Such a ranking isn't appropriate. Shaoli braced herself and spoke. The crowd couldn't help but smack their lips inwardly. The Xiao family's members were willing to risk their lives for the 1st place. and they even dared to question Palace Mistress Kong Chan. Palace Mistress Kong Chan looked at her calmly. She didn't use her imposing aura to intimidate her, as she spoke in a reasonable manner. The Fairy Confining Forest trial's objective is to test one's fighting prowess. Since he had the power to kill a level 6 fairy realm demonic beast, he was naturally ranked first. If you also have such power, then you can also be ranked first. Do you still have any more questions? Xiao Li's face became flushed, and she raised her head and glared at Su Yu fiercely. If you don't have any more questions, then let's proceed to the next trial, the carp leaping over the dragon gate. Elder Li announced the rules. Elder Li wore a respectful look as he spoke in a loud voice. Sirs, please leave the stone pillars. Walala. Everyone left and looked at the trial from a distance. At that moment, a crack appeared on the plaza in the middle of the 9 stone pillars, and a wave of water vapor surged out of it. Many disciples, who were engulfed by the water vapor, felt as if their heads were about to split open, and they found it difficult to breathe. Su Yu's pupils contracted slightly, and when the water vapor fell on his body, he discovered that it was extremely heavy. Even though it wasn't even a single drop of water vapor, it still weighed half a pound. Moreover, the heaviness didn't just come from his body, but also from his soul. This water vapor was also quite oppressive to his soul. Rumble. The plaza in the middle of the plaza was split open, revealing a giant pit that resembled a giant well. At the bottom of the giant well was a pool of clear water. Although the well's walls were trembling intensely, the well's water didn't move in the slightest. It seemed like it wasn't water, but an incomparably heavy boulder. It's about to start. The gazes of many family masters became grave, as they were all quite familiar with this. While many of the juniors were curious about it, the well's water suddenly decreased until there wasn't even a single drop left. It seemed like it had been sucked away by something. Then, to their surprise, the top of the 9 stone pillars began to spray out well water, covering the entire stone pillar. At the same time, layers of stairs gradually appeared on the stone pillars, winding from the bottom all the way to the top. There were a total of 99 steps. It turned out that the 9 stone pillars had sucked the well's water into them, then sprayed it out from the top. According to the rules of the carp leaping over Dragon Gate, walk up the stairs from the bottom of the 9 stone pillars. No vital energy is allowed, and no flying is allowed. Violators will be disqualified from the assessment. Those who successfully cross 10 steps are considered qualified. After that, every additional step you cross will earn you 1,000 points. Now the assessment begins. Hearing this, many of the genius juniors became very serious. The second segment of the double aptitude assessment, the carp leaping over Dragon Gate, was even scarier than the first segment. The casualty rate of the second segment was more than double that of the first. They had to walk up the stairs against the spray of water. If they were even slightly careless, they could be washed down the stairs by the water and fall to their deaths on the spot. It seemed like a joke, but it wasn't. The well's water was extremely heavy, and when it hit one's body, it was like a boulder. Once washed down, there's almost no room for resistance, and one would be smashed to the bottom of the well, never to climb out again. Its cruelty far surpassed that of the immortal confining forest. Many people who passed the first segment were hesitant, not daring to step forward. Whoosh! There were those who were hesitant, and there were those who were bold and confident. A white-clothed girl tapped her toes and landed at the bottom of the stone pillar like a butterfly, stepping onto the first step. The girl's skin was fair, and she was the 5th-ranked Shan Qilin. As soon as she stepped onto the first step, the fountain above the stone pillar suddenly rose. Like a torrential downpour, it fell down. The white-clothed girl's body was instantly soaked. The rock-like raindrops hit her body, causing her to groan in pain. Moreover, the rainwater soaked her clothes, making her feel incomparably heavy, as if she was carrying a 10,000-kilogram boulder on her back. Her confident face revealed a look of horror. She looked up and saw that the higher she went, the denser the water became. Looking down, she saw that it was the bottom of the endless well. Once she was washed down, she would die a horrible death. I give up. The white-clothed girl clenched her teeth and retracted her right foot, that was about to step onto the second step. After weighing the pros and cons, she chose to give up. She resentfully fell back to the ground. The white-clothed girl muttered to herself, "Such a harsh assessment. Aren't we outer disciples people?" It was said that disciples who passed the inner court exam practically didn't have to go through any tests and could directly enter the outer court. In comparison, they had to experience the threat of death. The first person to try had chosen to give up, and it was a woman who had scored higher in the first test. For those who were eager to try, it was undoubtedly a rude awakening. The morale of the people around them plummeted. "I'll give a try." Yuan Yingying glanced at Situ Yin and volunteered. In the second round of assessment, no one could protect him. He could only rely on himself. When Situ Yin sensed Yuan Yingying's provocative gaze, she puffed out her chest and said, "I'll go too." Lady Situ clenched her fists and her eyes flickered, but she did not stop him. He could only rely on himself for the second test. However, at this moment, Palace Mistress Kong Chan was startled, and her ears twitched slightly. "The two of you don't need to undergo the second test. An outer sect elder wants to see you. Congratulations. Elderly, bring them to the External Affairs Hall," Palace Mistress Kong Chan said with a smile. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of everyone present froze, and it was difficult to conceal the jealousy on their faces. They had risked their lives to accept the test of death, but the two girls were directly chosen by the outer sect elders and were exempted from the test. Unfair. But so what? This was the Red Blood Palace. It's within our expectations that Situ Yin was chosen by the elders. She's a rare formation master, and she has an extraordinary status in the Red Blood Palace, someone said. But what's the origin of that girl called Yuan Yingying? Why was she chosen by the elders? Many people had similar questions. I think that she must have displayed some kind of powerful talent. Many elders were secretly paying attention to the first test, and if someone displayed outstanding talent in some aspects, they would be chosen by them, and they would make an exception to join them. "It's probably the case for this girl," someone said. It seemed like Yuan Yingying's soul talent, which she displayed when she killed demonic beasts using a secret soul technique, had tempted some old monsters. The two girls were dumbfounded. They were both overwhelmed by the unexpected favor, as happiness had come to them quickly. "Brother Su, I passed the test." Yuan Yingying wept tears of joy as she looked at Suyu. Her heart was filled with gratitude. In the past, she had never imagined that she would have such a day. At that time, the world in front of her was just the small Yuan family, and the life she pursued was just to get the Yuan family's approval. She had never imagined that she would one day become a disciple of a colossal faction like the Red Blood Palace. All of this had changed because of Suyu. "Lassie, go ahead and cultivate properly after you enter the test. We will meet again soon." Suyu stroked her head, while affection appeared in his eyes. Situ Yin pouted and said, "Brother Su, goodbye. I will surely come a look for you." Suyu chuckled, then bid farewell to the two girls. Suyu heaved a sigh of relief, as he didn't have to worry about them anymore. Chapter 782. When Xiao Li saw this, she flew to the bottom of another pillar, as if she wanted to compete with Suyu. Suyu didn't pay any attention to her, as he just looked at the steep flight of stairs. When he stepped on it, the fountain erupted, and the boundless water splashed on his face. It was as if many boulders were smashing on his face. Suyu felt an intense pain all over. His clothes were drenched by the rainwater, and all of its weight was placed on his body. In the twinkling of an eye, he felt like he was bearing a boulder that weighed 10,000 kilograms. Suyu tried to raise his foot, but even with his powerful body, he still found it somewhat heavy. It was no wonder that Shan Qilin had quit without the slightest hesitation. Such a trial was really difficult, and it was wise of her to give up so decisively. Look, Xiao Li has already taken 3 steps, as expected of a level 5 fairy realm genius. The crowd cried out in alarm. Xiao Li cast a provocative look at Suyu, who was still on the first step. Suyu was completely focused on the stairs, so he didn't pay any attention to the outside world. Finally, he started moving, and he stepped on the second step at a steady pace. The second step's fountain was even denser, and it made his body's weight even heavier. The slower he moved, the more disadvantageous it was for him. On the contrary, Xiaoli would have an advantage if she advanced quickly in a short time. Suyu continued advancing slowly and methodically. The third step, the fourth step, the fifth step. When he reached the sixth step, the crowd cried out in alarm. Xiaoli's body gracefully jumped onto the stairs. She had passed the trial. Xiaoli gasped for breath and turned her head to look at Suyu. She then shook her head slightly, as if she was looking at Suyu with disdain. She then continued advancing without turning her head back. Suyu ignored her and continued advancing at a steady pace. During the previous two tribulations, both Suyu's physical body and soul power had risen sharply. Both his physical body and soul power had reached the level 3 fairy realm. Such a rapid rise had its pros and cons. The cons were that his foundation wasn't stable, and his physical body's power was fluctuating between high and low. The heavy water in front of him could suppress both his physical body and soul, so it was the best place for Suyu to consolidate his strength. Thus, he didn't advance impatiently, and he continued tempering himself step by step. Palace Mistress Kong Chan opened her eyes slowly. She swept her gaze over Xiaoli, who was leading the way, before her gaze fell on Suyu. A faint look of expectation appeared in her eyes as she said, "I wonder whether he can reach that level." In the Shangwan family, Shangwan Yunk looked at Suyu and furrowed his brows. "Brother Su, with your physical body, you shouldn't be so slow, right? At the very least, the top 10 shouldn't be a problem." Shangwan Cheng, who was at the side, had a strange look in her eyes. "Brother, you don't understand. Suyu's way of walking is the most suitable. The outer court examinees only treat the carp leaping through the dragon gate as a cruel test with a slim chance of survival. But they don't know that in the eyes of the inner court disciples, it's a training opportunity that can only be chanced upon by luck. If you want to try the carp leaping through the dragon gate, you have to spend 100,000 merit points." Shangwan Qinger's eyes were filled with envy. "If it wasn't for the fact that I'm already an inner sanctum disciple and can no longer take the test, I would also like to enter the carp leaping over the dragon gate." Although Shangwan Yunk was in the inner sanctum, he wasn't a true inner sanctum disciple, so he didn't know much about it. He asked curiously, "Why is that?" Shangwan Qinger replied, "The heavy water has an unimaginable oppressive effect on one's body and soul. As long as one surpasses a certain threshold, both his body and soul will be tempered." She then added, "The body isn't an issue, but most of the soul tempering methods have disappeared since ancient times. There aren't many soul tempering methods in this world, so the carp leaping through the dragon gate's soul tempering is extremely precious. As far as I know, all inner sanctum disciples who pay attention to soul cultivation are striving for the carp leaping through the dragon gate's trial. As for the outer sanctum disciples, they only view it as a burden and don't know how great of a fortuitous opportunity they are missing out on." Shangwan Qinger looked at Suyu and continued, "Every step you take must be firm and steady, and it's only in this way that you will be able to obtain the trial's benefits. Xiaoli seems smart, but she's really stupid." When he heard her, Shangwan Yunk couldn't help but click his tongue. In the past, he had relied on his younger sister's status as Mo Tianchuan's unofficial disciple to avoid the trial. But he didn't know that the carp leaping through the dragon gate's benefits were so heaven-defying. Time elapsed slowly, and more disciples joined the trial. Many people failed, but only a small portion of them managed to reach the 10th step. However, none of them dared to advance any further. They all rejoiced at their success and immediately left the dangerous trial. When all 40 people had finished the trial, Suyu and Xiaoli were still on the stairs. Xiaoli had already reached the 20th step, and her whole body was drenched in sweat. She was gasping for breath, and her speed had already slowed down greatly. Her body could still persist, but the heavy pressure that her soul had to bear was extremely unbearable. Her body was on the verge of collapsing, as she had almost reached her limit. However, when she turned her head and looked at Suyu, who was still on the 13th step, she heaved a sigh of relief. 7 more steps than him meant that she had gained 7,000 points. Hence, the second trial's first place was surely hers. The only thing that displeased her was that Su Yu's pace hadn't changed at all. The last 10 steps were more difficult than the first 10, yet Su Yu was still able to maintain the same pace. This made Xiaoli feel restless, but she still clenched her teeth and forced herself to continue climbing. After 2 hours had passed, Xiaoli reached the 25th step with great difficulty, and she was squatting on it, unable to budge an inch. The heavy water here was too difficult for her body to bear, and as she had already reached her limit, she couldn't proceed any further. The first place should be mine. She forced herself to reveal a faint smile as she turned her head around to look at Su Yu. However, Su Yu's figure was nowhere to be seen on the stone pillar. Did he fall down? Xiaoli was startled by this, but soon after, she revealed a faint smile, as if she had just been relieved of a heavy burden. She didn't know when she had started viewing Su Yu as a formidable rival. When she was just about to give up, she noticed out of the corner of her eye that many people were looking at her. However, their gazes weren't focused on her, but on the stone pillar where Su Yu was. When Xiaoli raised her head and looked at it, her whole body shivered as she cried out in alarm, "Impossible!" The reason why she couldn't see Su Yu was that he had already surpassed her and was now standing on the 29th step. He was obviously 7 steps slower than her a moment ago, yet in just 2 hours, he had already surpassed her by 5 steps. If she observed him carefully, she would discover that, although Su Yu's pace was slower than the previous 20 steps, it was still higher than hers. How is this possible? The 25th step is my limit, so how can Su Yu be stronger than me? Xiaoli couldn't understand this matter, and she wondered, could it be that Su Yu's fleshly body is stronger than hers, who is at the level 5 fairy realm? On the boulder, it has been many years since the last time someone managed to reach the 29th step in the external recruitment test. It seems like a good seedling will emerge from this year's external recruitment test. An old man clad in hemp clothes was standing next to Palace Mistress Cauldron. He was holding a walking stick, and it was unknown when he had appeared next to her. When many family masters saw him, reverence appeared in their eyes. The old man was none other than one of the outer sanctum's 2 lesser palace masters, Palace Master Hua. Palace Mistress Kong Chan looked at Su Yu, while a look of anticipation appeared on her aged face. It's still too early to come to a conclusion. The first 30 steps are just for the challengers to familiarize themselves with them, while the last 30 steps are the true test. Shangguan Qinger's beautiful eyes flickered. Amazing! The carp leaping over the dragon gate is also a test of one's aptitude. According to what I know, almost all of the inner sanctum's disciples manage to reach the 30th step. If one can reach the 40th step, he will be an elite in the outer sanctum. And if he can reach the 50th step, he will be a demon-like existence in the outer sanctum. If he can reach the 60th step, he will be an elite in the inner sanctum. Shangguan Yunk's eyes became filled with anticipation. Which step do you think he can reach? Shangguan Qinger rolled her eyes at Shangguan Yunk and said, "How would I know? It's you who invited him here." Shangguan Qinger looked at Su Yu and said, "However, the Demon Mountain's 4 demons only managed to reach the 50th step in the first carp leaping over the Dragon Gate trial, while the leader of the 4 demons, Bing Wuxin, only managed to reach the 57th step. So, even if this Su Yu is a demon-like talent, he still can't be more demon-like than the 4 demons, right? The 4 of them made an exception in the past and were allowed to skip the outer sanctum's trial and enter the inner sanctum. They are heaven-defying existences, and even in the inner sanctum, which is filled with experts, the 4 of them still have great reputations." When Shangguan Yunk heard her mention the 4 demons, his face shivered. That's right. It seemed like Shangguan Qinger had also thought of something, and her pretty face became gloomy. She clenched her fists and seemed as if she dared to speak up. Last time, the demonic woman, who was one of the 4 demons, had come to the Shangguan family as an emissary. However, she had been displeased, and a day later, all of the Shangguan family's members, from the servants to the family master, were vomiting and having diarrhea. Even she wasn't spared. It was obvious that this was the doing of that lawless, demonic woman. The fact that even Shangguan Qinger who was Mo Tianquan's registered disciple, didn't dare to speak out against her, showed how ferocious the four demons were. Many of the family masters were shocked and speechless as they watched Su Yu step onto the 30th step. Rumble. A muffled sound echoed out, as if a muffled thunder had echoed out from the stone pillar. Madame Situ's body shivered, and she couldn't believe her own eyes. The 30th step. He stepped onto the 30th step. This meant that Su Yu had great potential, and he might even reach the Divine Master Realm in the future and enter the Inner Sanctum. Palace Mistress Kong Chan revealed a gratified look and said, "The Situ family's recommendation is meritorious, and you will be rewarded with the right to manage the Sky Castle for 20 years, as well as 10 solid foundation nourishing pills. I hope that you will continue to nurture the region's outstanding juniors and contribute to the Red Blood Palace's development." Delight appeared on Madame Situ's face. After all, if the person she recommended had an outstanding performance, he would surely get an extra reward. In the past, the Shangwan family would have to pay 10 years of their income in exchange for 20 years' worth of management rights. Now, it was like they were exempted from paying 10 years' worth of offerings. As for the Solid Foundation Nourishing Pill, it was a 5th-grade spirit elixir that was unique to the Red Blood Palace. It was one of the best low-grade spirit elixirs, and if it was consumed by a half-fairy, it could stabilize one's foundation and stimulate one's potential. It was also rumored that if an ordinary person consumed it, he would gradually show some talent. I thank Palace Master Kong Chan for the reward. Many of the family masters' eyes turned red. They were both envious and jealous of Su Yu. When the Shangwan family saw this, they couldn't help but smile bitterly. This was something that should have belonged to the Shangwan family, yet it had been taken advantage of by the Situ family. When Su Yu stepped onto the 30th step, he immediately felt the pressure on him increase. Chapter 783. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps. At the 9th step, the people below held their breaths and stared at the scene before them in disbelief. The 39th level. It was rare for the 39th level to appear in the external recruitment examination. The last time it appeared was over 100 years ago. Many families were filled with anticipation and jealousy. They were jealous of the Situ family's good fortune, and they were looking forward to seeing Su Yu's performance. The Red Blood Palace wanted to reduce the number of external recruitment quotas, and Su Yu's current performance might be able to reverse the situation. Palace Master Hua chuckled. "I was right, wasn't I? He's a good seedling now." Su Yu, who was standing on the 39th floor, was stunned on the spot, because on the 40th step, there was actually a shadow standing there. From the looks of it, it was a man. His facial features were incomplete and blurry. This is the last man to pass the 40th level. It was done by Yang Filiu of the Outer Sanctum 5 months ago. If Su Yu successfully steps onto the 40th step, his image will replace Yang Filiu and stand on the 40th step. Shangwan Qinger's eyes shone brightly. Once you break through to the 40th level, you will have unimaginable privileges in the Outer Sanctum. So you paused for a moment, then stepped on it. All of a sudden, the illusory figure shattered, and Su Yu's indistinct figure appeared. Su Yu was stunned for a moment, but when he realized that it was not a big deal, he left. However, the moment he stepped onto the 40th step, a shocking pressure suddenly assaulted him. Crack! The bones in Su Yu's body emitted a cracking sound, and it seemed like they were about to collapse. Even his soul felt a bit of pain. A pained expression flashed past Su Yu's face. However, his heart was filled with joy. After passing through the first 40 levels, his soul and body had stabilized. Now, the further he walked, the more his soul and body would be tempered. With excitement in his eyes, Su Yu let out a low grunt and stepped forward. This scene caused everyone to be shocked, speechless for a long time. Is he a monster? We're on the 40th floor now. We can still go up. Hiss. Level 40. Based on his potential, he must be at the elite level of the outer sect. Lady Situ's beautiful eyes were filled with splendor, and she couldn't use words to describe the shock in her heart. A satisfied smile finally appeared on Palace Mistress Kong Chan's face as she said, "The Situ clan's recommendation is meritorious. They will grant you another 40 years of jurisdiction, 20 solid foundation cultivating pills, and a profound pill and a 5th-grade divine accumulation pill. Divine accumulation pill? Even the Shangwan clan master's pupils shrank. Putting aside the jurisdiction and the solid foundation cultivating pill, the divine accumulation pill had shocked all the family heads present. Even the many god masters' envoys shuddered, their eyes filled with excitement. Elderly, who had just returned, had a look of envy on his face. He cupped his hands toward Lady Situ and said, "Congratulations, Lady Situ. Your cultivation has improved once again. I'm really envious of you." Lady Situ's whole body trembled. Divine accumulation pill? The divine accumulation pill was already a profound core pill. Elixirs that were useful for the fairy realm were called spiritual elixirs. As for the pills that were effective on divine masters, they were called profound pills. The divine accumulation pill was a middle-grade mysterious pill among mysterious pills, and it was extremely beneficial to people at the peak of the early stage and the middle stage divine masters. Lady Situ had the cultivation of a 3rd-grade almighty, and the divine accumulation pill could refine her magical power and strengthen her divine incantation, which could increase her power significantly. This kind of medicinal pill could not be found on the market, and it was impossible to find a better medicinal pill of the same level. Moreover, it was a 5th-grade one. For a moment, Lady Situ felt dizzy, as if she had just been overjoyed. Shangwan Yunk's mouth twitched, and when he looked at his father, he could no longer take pleasure in his misfortune. Instead, he felt pity for him. He knew that his father had spent a lot of effort in order to obtain the divine accumulation pill, but it was still so difficult for him to obtain even one. He must be in a terrible mood right now. After 4 hours, Suyu had already stepped onto the 45th step. From the 40th step onward, a different figure appeared on almost every step, and they were all the people who had just arrived on that step. Suyu continued on, annihilating all of them, leaving only his phantom image behind. After 8 hours, Suyu finally reached the 49th step with increasing difficulty. At that moment, Suyu's whole body was drenched in sweat, and his bones felt like they were about to fall apart. Suyu bent down and gasped for breath. It seemed like he was reaching his limit. Even so, Suyu still looked delighted. He could feel that both his physical body and soul energy had improved greatly. If he could continue moving forward, he would surely achieve a great breakthrough. There was a deathly silence below the stone pillar. Everyone wanted to know whether Suyu could continue moving forward and step onto the 50th step. The 50th step represented the outer sanctum's monstrous genius, and it was a realm that only the 4 demons could reach. Palace Master Hua chuckled and said, "Even among the inner sanctum's disciples, only the elites can reach the 50th step. It seems like our outer sanctum has gained another monstrous genius." Delight appeared on Palace Master Kong Chan's face, but her expression soon became grave. This lad's potential isn't limited to just this much, and if he continues moving forward, I'm afraid that the inner sanctum's old men will smell him and recruit him into the inner sanctum ahead of time. Our gains won't make up for our losses. Palace Master Hua's expression became grave when he heard this, and the delight on his face gradually disappeared. He then said, "I just hope that this lad knows when to stop and understand that the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Otherwise, if the inner sanctum's disciples really come to ask for him, we won't be able to stop them unless he's unwilling." Suyu raised his head and saw that there was another person standing on the 50th step. He seemed like a child at first glance. Suyu shook his head and stepped onto it. The child's phantom image shattered and was replaced by Suyu's figure. The 50th step. He had reached the 50th step. Everyone held their breaths, almost suffocating. They stared at the divine eagle on the 50th floor in disbelief. Another demonic genius had been born. Suyu, on the other hand, felt an unprecedented pressure. His soul was shaken, and cracking sounds echoed from his body. He was already at his limit, but if he forced himself to take several steps, it wouldn't be a problem for him. Suyu raised his head and looked at the 50th to 60th steps. Unlike the 40th step, there were only 4 people in the domain of 50 steps, including the one Suyu was on. There was 1 person on the 50th step, 1 on the 52nd step, and 1 on the 53rd step. The farthest person was on the 57th step, and it was a tall woman. Suyu calculated inwardly. He had the divine 9-dragon cauldron's help, so his soul wouldn't suffer any harm, while his body still had the first dragon's body, so he could continue moving forward. If he clenched his teeth and persevered, he should still be able to crush that woman's figure. However, as he looked at the shocked faces below him, he suppressed such thoughts. Both his body and soul had been tempered greatly, and he had already reached his goal. Moreover, it seemed like he was in the limelight now, so it was time to end this. He had just joined the sanctum, so it was better for him to keep a low profile. However, he didn't know that this trip had caused his reputation to soar, and it would be impossible for him to keep a low profile. As Suyu tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, he broke through the heavy water and landed on the ground. Many people were startled by such a scene. When the others left the carp leaping over the dragon gate, they were all exhausted. They had all come back carefully while holding on to the stairs. Shaoli was the same. However, Suyu had managed to cross the heavy water and come back. What did this mean? It meant that he still had enough energy to continue moving forward. This lad had hidden his potential on purpose. Palace Mistress Kong Chan and Palace Mistress Hua exchanged a glance and heaved a sigh of relief. They then looked at Suyu with admiration in their eyes. He had managed to retreat in time, hide his potential, and avoid the limelight. Palace Mistress Kong Chan stood up and looked at Madame Situ with a smile. Madame Situ, you have recommended a good seedling this time, and you have made a great contribution to our Red Blood Palace's outer sanctum. As such, you will be rewarded with 5 5th-grade Divine Nourishing Pills and a 6th-grade Divine Nourishing Pill. Moreover, you will be allowed to double the number of people in the Situ family's recruitment test, and each time, you will be allowed to recommend 40 people. I hope that you will continue sending talents like Suyu to the outer sanctum. Upon hearing this, the expressions of many family masters changed drastically. Not only were there 5 5th-grade Divine Nourishing Pills, but there was also a 6th-grade one. Even if one had just broken through to the level 3 Divine Master Realm, he would be able to reach the level 4 Divine Master Realm and become a middle-stage Divine Master Realm in a short time after consuming it. Moreover, Madame Situ was an existence who had been stuck at the peak of the level 3 Divine Master Realm for a long time. They knew that after this, Madame Situ would become a middle-stage Divine Master Realm expert and stand shoulder to shoulder with Xiao Yueming. What made their expressions even more unsightly was that the Situ family had a recommendation quota that was twice as large as theirs. What did this mean? It meant that more geniuses would join the Situ family in order to obtain a quota. Moreover, the fact that they had recommended a heaven-defying demonic genius would make their name known, and they would be able to attract more geniuses to join them. This would be of great significance to the Situ family's development. Although it sounded unimaginable that a recommended genius could change the fate of an entire family, it was actually what the Red Blood Palace hoped to achieve. Only then would the big and small factions under their jurisdiction earnestly recommend geniuses. Madame Situ was so happy that she almost fainted. She, who had been the family master for many years, couldn't help but feel excited. She hadn't let her husband down, and the Situ family would hopefully develop greatly under her leadership. All of this was thanks to the Silver-Masked Lord, who had found such a powerful demonic genius for her. It was only the Shangwan family's master who sighed in frustration and melancholy. Father, since it has already come to this, it's useless for you to regret it. Shangwan Yunk was quite helpless, so he comforted him softly. Sometimes you'll get what you want, but if you don't want it, then don't force it. Let nature take its course. The Shangwan family's master seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. I'm already old, and I can't judge people properly. Yunk, you should spend more time with Mr. Su in the sanctum, as his achievements in the future won't be any lower than yours. I understand, Shangwan Yunk said. The thrilling test had come to an end just like that. Su Yu, a demonic genius who had appeared out of nowhere, had managed to reach the 50th layer of the carp leaping over the dragon gate with a cultivation of the level 1 fairy realm. Suyu deserves to be the first in the fairy confining forest trial. Palace Mistress Kong Chan's expression was relaxed. She hadn't been this happy in a long time. Swoosh! It was at this moment that Xiao Yueming, who had gone to the fairy confining forest for half a day, finally came back. He was holding a dying Xiao family's junior in each of his hands. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was filled with grief and indignation. He had searched through most of the forest, and most of the corpses he found were the corpses of his family's juniors, which had been gnawed on. Only 2 juniors were lucky enough to avoid the beast tide. Both of them had died, including Xiao Lingjian. Even Xiao Lingjian's corpse wasn't left behind. The crowd looked at each other in dismay, while some of them took pleasure in their misfortune. In the end, only 3 people from the Xiao family had survived, which was even more miserable than the Lin family, which had suffered the brunt of the beast tide. Chapter 784. Kong Chan and the old man looked at each other in surprise. Only 3 people from the Xiao family survived? Okay, Xiao family master, you can speak freely, Palace Mistress Kong Chan said. Xiao Yueming looked at Su Yu, who was sitting cross-legged and resting, while emitting a strong, killing intent. Palace mistresses, please help us cripple Su Yu's cultivation and take revenge for our Xiao family's children. Huh? Everyone looked at Su Yu and wondered, is the Xiao family's heavy casualties really related to this lad? However, they weren't worried about Su Yu, and they just looked at the infuriated Xiao Yueming playfully. Explain yourself clearly, Palace Mistress Kong Chan asked calmly. Xiao Yueming was somewhat flabbergasted by the attitude of the people around him. He wanted to investigate this matter, but he couldn't restrain the killing intent in his heart. His eyes became moist, and he said with grief and hatred, my son, Xiao Lingjian, was killed by Su Yuxian. It was also because of him that our Xiao family's people were separated and we were attacked by the beast tide one by one. He disregarded the law and attacked the Xiao family's challengers, so, according to reason, his cultivation should be crippled. Palace Mistress Kong Chan, please help me. Palace Mistress Kong Chan was expressionless. Huh? Do you have any proof? The Red Blood Palace has always convinced people with reason, and just a few words from you aren't enough. Xiao Yueming pushed the 2 Xiao clan's disciples in his hands forward. The 2 of them immediately knelt on the ground and cried, Palace Master, please seek justice for our young master. This evil man stopped us and fought with our young master. Our young master protected us and asked us to leave first. Then, our young master died. He must have killed him. If Su Yu had killed Xiao Lingjian in the past, many family masters would have doubted him. But, judging from Su Yu's previous performance, it was obvious that he was the one who had done it. They all wore playful looks on their faces. If it had been in the past, Palace Mistress Kong Chan would surely have punished Su Yu severely for the sake of his great family's influence. But now, well, does this mean that you didn't see Su Yu kill Xiao Lingjian with your own eyes? Palace Mistress Kong Chan asked calmly. The 2 Xiao family's disciples were startled, and they had a bad premonition. They shook their heads and said, no, but the young master's disappearance was surely caused by him. Splutter. All of a sudden, the 2 Xiao family's disciples' faces became flushed, and they spouted a mouthful of blood. It was Palace Mistress Kong Chan, who glared at them. Her face was filled with anger as she said, do you take my Red Blood Palace as small as your Xiao family? How dare you slander me without seeing it with your own eyes? As she spoke, Palace Mistress Kong Chan looked at Su Yu and said, Su Yuxian, why don't you tell us as well? The Xiao family's people have stated that you fought with Xiao Lingjian, and you are still missing. Did you kill him? Su Yu opened his eyes, shrugged his shoulders, and said, Brother Xiao and I only exchanged blows once on the stone pillar, and our powers were enough to determine the victor. So, we happened to run into each other, so I invited you to exchange pointers with me. After that, Brother Xiao was defeated by me, and he became disheartened, so he went into the forest alone. He left a message saying that he would meditate on the wall for 10 years, and that he would come back to compete with me after he comprehended a supreme technique. As he spoke, Suyu looked at Xiao Yuanming with a smile. Xiao family's master. If you quickly chase after him, you might be able to find your son in one of the cliffs. Puff! Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Suyu had already sent Xiao Lingji into hell, yet he was still teasing him like this. You're talking nonsense. It was clearly a fight to the death. How could it be a spar? The two Xiao clan's younger generation were so angry that their chests were heaving up and down. Suyu looked over and said calmly, "Oh, why should I fight with him? Wouldn't it be better for me to kill my demonic beast for no reason?" "That's because we angered you," one of the Xiao family's younger generation blurted out. Suyu sneered coldly. "Why did you anger me? Why don't you tell me about it? Did you do something that you shouldn't have done, such as chasing after the Sidhu family's people?" The two Xiao family's younger generation were so shocked that their souls almost left their bodies. "No, of course not. You're just talking nonsense." "That's enough." Palace Mistress Kong Chan furrowed her brows and stared at the two Xiao family's younger generation. "You're trying to cover yourself in such a secretive manner. Xiao family's master, take them away, and we'll talk about it after we find evidence." Xiao Yuanming's heart thumped. He had already noticed that the atmosphere was far from good, and now he felt like something was amiss. What happened? It seems like Palace Mistress Kong Chan is siding with Su Yuxian. "Palace Mistress, regardless of what happened, please hand over Su Yuxian to me. The Xiao family's people mustn't have died in vain." Xiao Yuanming took a step forward and pleaded with her. Suyu had killed his only son and caused many outstanding juniors to die miserably. So, how could he not take revenge for this debt of blood? Palace Mistress Kong Chan's apathetic face gradually became ice cold. "Xiao Yuanming, do you want me to repeat myself twice? Take your men and stand down." She had already addressed him as Xiao Yuanming, and it was obvious that she was truly infuriated. Xiao Yuanming's heart shuddered, and he hesitated for a moment before he stopped. He lowered his head and didn't say anything. "Fine, the test has come to an end. The disciples who pass the test can follow me to the outer sanctum. Family mistresses, you can rest for a few days in the outer sanctum's rooms before you leave," Palace Mistress Kong Chan said. She then led the few envoys and the people who had passed the test back to the outer sanctum. Xiaoli followed after her, and before she left, she threw a jade pendant at Xiao Yuanming. A moment ago, Palace Mistress Kong Chan was in charge of the situation, so it wasn't convenient for Xiaoli to say anything. Xiao Yuanming caught the pendant and pressed it against his forehead, while a voice transmission was transmitted to his brain. "Family Mistress, please bear with it for now. Su Yuxian's potential is outstanding, and he has already reached the 50th layer. He is valued by the outer sanctum, so Palace Mistress Kong Chan and Palace Mistress Hua will surely side with him." Xiao Yuanming's whole body shuddered when he heard this. The 50th layer? His pupils contracted, and he was shocked beyond words. After he stood there for a long while, the hatred in his eyes didn't decrease. Instead, it increased. "Why just let go of my son's grudge? It's impossible. Suyu, don't assume that I can't deal with you just because you are in the outer sanctum. The two palace mistresses can protect you for a while, but they can't protect you forever. Moreover, since you got the first place, you must go to that place, and you will surely die there." Xiao Yuanming clenched his fist and crushed the jade pendant. In the outer sanctum, Palace Mistress Kong Chan and Palace Mistress Hua were explaining the new disciples' rules to them while they were distributing items. They were given an identity badge, a spatial ring, and a blue robe with light patterns on it. They were all considered new disciples of the Red Blood Palace. "Su Yuxian, this is your extra badge." Palace Mistress Kong Chan threw a black badge to Su Yu, which had the word Fish Dragon engraved on it. She then added, "After you reach the 40th layer in the Carp Leaping over Dragon Gates trial, you will get such a badge, and you will get some special privileges with it. The more layers you break through, the greater your privileges will be." Palace Mistress Kong Chan and Palace Mistress Hua left in a hurry without waiting for Su Yu's question, leaving behind several reception elders to explain the palace's rules and arrange their lodgings for them. Su Yu was startled by this, and he wondered, Didn't Palace Mistress Kong Chan say that I caused great trouble because of the devilish Scarlet Martin's matter? Come over here. I have something to discuss with you. A fragrant wind assaulted Su Yu's noiselessly as Zi Xian, who was as beautiful as a ghost, went to Su Yu's side and spoke in a low voice. Su Yu was startled by this, and he followed her to a corner of the hall, then lowered his head and whispered into her ear. Zi Xian, what's the matter? Su Yu asked in surprise. Zi Xian looked at Su Yu and spoke clearly. You deceived me. Su Yu's heart thumped as he realized that he had been discovered. As he looked at Zi Xian's gaze, which was solemn, and angry, Su Yu's heart became ice cold. How did she discover it so quickly? Su Yu's eyes flickered for a long while before he sighed softly. He didn't even think about running away. If he had been prepared, he would have been able to run away, but it was impossible for him to do so in front of Zi Xian. Su Yu laughed mockingly at himself, as he knew that he would surely die on this day. He then said, You finally discovered it. I'm sorry for deceiving you, but I have my own reasons for doing so. Zi Xian snorted and said, You finally admitted it. That's good, so don't blame me for being impolite. Su Yu closed his eyes slowly. He had assumed that he would still be able to use his fists and legs after coming to Jiuzhou. He had never expected that he would be killed by an all-creation realm expert. If you want to kill me, you could do whatever you want. However, I can die, but you can't make me apologize to him. Su Yu's gaze was resolute, as he didn't regret killing the Blood Emperor. Wait! Zi Xian blinked her sapphire-like eyes. Why would I want to kill you? Su Yu was startled. Didn't you already discover it? Zi Xian nodded, then said angrily, That's right. You lied to me that Su Yu was among the challengers and caused me to miss the chance to find him. Su Yu was dumbfounded, and a gust of wind blew past him, causing his mind to be in a mess. I observed all of the challengers in the fairy confining forest according to what you said, and none of them was Su Yu, but I found traces of him attacking them, and I surmised that he wasn't a challenger, but a Red Blood Palace's disciple who was protecting a challenger in secret and only intervened when he ran into danger. Su Yu's heart was racing as he thought, You have already made up a story for me, so what else can I say? It's all because of you that I paid attention to the wrong direction. Tell me, how will you compensate me? Zi Xian glared at Su Yu fiercely, then waved her snow-white fist and hit Su Yu's chest. In the eyes of others, it seemed like they were flirting. Su Yu was embarrassed. Madam, you're an all-creational monster, so how can I compensate you? Zi Xian tilted her head, then furrowed her brows as she thought about it. That's true, but after she came back to her senses, she said reluctantly, But I don't feel comfortable letting you off like this, so I want to punish you. Su Yu rolled his eyes and said helplessly, Why are you still holding on to me? Hurry up and look for Su Yu. I'm punishing you. Help me look for Su Yu, and this is your punishment, a severe punishment. I won't let you cultivate peacefully, sleep peacefully, or eat peacefully. Zi Xian placed her hands on her hips and glared at Su Yu angrily. As he looked at Zi Xian, Su Yu wiped away the black lines on his forehead. How could there be such a silly and adorable all-creation old monster in this world? It must be an illusion. Fine, I'll continue helping you look for Su Yu, and I'll inform you once I get any news. So you could only continue acting like a philanthropist. Zi Xian shook her head. You can't. I want to keep an eye on you, so that you can look for him wholeheartedly. Su Yu's veins throbbed. Won't it be faster for you to look for him yourself? With your cultivation, will it be difficult for you to scan the inner sanctum and outer sanctum's people? Zi Xian shook her head. No, there's an all-creation old monster in the outer sanctum, and if I walk around casually, I'll surely be detected. So, I can only send you to investigate in secret. Su Yu raised his brows. There's an all-creation old monster in the outer sanctum? Didn't the Red Blood Palace only have the current palace master, Mo Tianxian, who's an all-creation old monster? Why is there another one? Fine. How do you want to keep an eye on me? Surely you won't stay with me? Su Yu asked angrily. Zi Xian's long eyelashes flickered, while her sapphire eyes flickered. She glared at him and asked, What? Can't I? I want to stay with you, eat, cultivate, and go out. Don't even think about getting rid of me. In fact, although the palace was large, it was quite spacious, and Zixian's voice was clearly heard by everyone. What the? Isn't this little sister too bold? Some of the new male disciples teased her. Some of the new female disciples were both angry and embarrassed. She attacked me too quickly. I didn't even start talking to her, yet she already pounced on me. The reception elders looked at each other in dismay, then said, "Sigh. Public morals are degenerating with each passing day." Su Yu's eyes widened as he finally confirmed that this little girl, who had a terrifying cultivation base, was actually the eldest miss who had never gone out. She didn't even have the most basic taboos against men and women. So it could be seen from this that her living environment was superior and monotonous. This. Su Yu wiped the sweat from his forehead as he wondered. What if I agree to live with her? What if this old monster becomes enlightened one day and wants to kill me to prove her innocence? Do you dare to not agree? Zixian ground her teeth. You have already gotten benefits from me, yet you still dare to return. You are a big liar, and I will. Su Yu hurriedly interrupted her. Wait, I will agree. Isn't it good for me to agree? But you must swear that you won't go back on your word, and you mustn't hunt me down. Zixian was startled. What? Why would I hunt you down? However, she still earnestly took out an oath scroll, wrote the oath on it, and threw it at Su Yu. It was only then that Su Yu felt at ease, and he carefully put away. After all, it would be a life-saving charm in the future. Su Yuxian, this is your residence, as well as your entrance badge. Keep it well. Elderly walked over awkwardly and took a look at Zixian. He wondered, how could such a delicate and pretty woman be so dissolute? He paused for a moment, then said, according to the rules, only you are allowed to live in the residence, and you aren't allowed to bring any outsiders with you. However, you have a fish dragon badge, and you are allowed to bring one person with you. However, youngsters should spend more time on cultivation, and you must remember to control yourself in certain aspects. So you felt like cursing. What control? That's an all-creation realm expert. Zixian looked curiously at the two people, who wore odd expressions. What are you talking about? Why can't I understand? So he was embarrassed. Elderly taught us that we should get along with each other and live in harmony. Oh, thank you, Elderly. Zixian revealed an elegant smile. Elderly couldn't bear Zixian's boldness, so he hurriedly said, Lad, you are this year's exams champion, so according to the rules, you can enter the Transcendence Pond once and get 1,000 merit points. The Transcendence Pond is quite useful for early-stage fairies like you, and this is especially the case since you just went through the carp leaping over the Dragon Gate. So, you should strike while the iron is hot, and its effect will be even better. You might even get a pleasant surprise from it. He then added, after you enter the Transcendence Pond, it would be best for you to enter the martial training room and consolidate your cultivation. The Transcendence Pond? It sounded quite good, but what were merit points? Elderly didn't wait for Su Yu's inquiry before he left. He didn't mention anything about the devilish-eyed Scarlet Martin at all. Zixian, this is the badge and address of our future residence. You should go and live there first, while I will cultivate for a while before coming back. So you had come to the Red Blood Palace to cultivate. So he obviously wouldn't let go of such a great opportunity. Zixian thought about it for a moment, then nodded. She then warned him, don't play any tricks, and you must tell us where you will live in half a day. Otherwise, as she spoke, she ground her teeth and clenched her fists, which emitted a cracking sound. The disciples were both envious and speechless. Isn't that woman in too much of a hurry? Su Yu's face became slightly hot, and he quickly left the Great Hall and rushed toward the Transcendence Palace, where the Transcendence Pond was located. At the same time, on a hill, which was inlaid with glowing pearls and precious stones, there was a giant residence in the belly of a mountain. There was a petite and adorable little girl who was cultivating calmly. All of a sudden, a beeping sound echoed from her waist. The little girl furrowed her brows and took a black badge from her waist. It was the same fish dragon badge that Su Yu had. When she opened her eyes to take a look at it, she jumped up and shouted loudly, I'm so infuriated. Which damned person destroyed the phantom image I left in the 50th layer and deprived me of my fish dragon privileges? Who is it? If the phantom image was replaced, then the corresponding layer's privileges would also be taken away. A level 8 fairy realm disciple, who was walking down the mountain, was startled when he heard such a cry. His face turned deathly pale as he exclaimed, "Demonic woman." Chapter 785. Near the hill, there were a dozen outer sect disciples dressed in light blue robes walking around. Suddenly, he heard a roar and his expression changed. Not good. The demoness is here, run. Run. In an instant, the dozen or so outer court disciples panicked. Hey, my shoe fell off. Who cares about shoes? Don't look back even if your wife falls off. The demoness is going down the mountain. Hurry home and close the doors and windows. Don't go out no matter what. Suyu was completely unaware of this matter, and he was just standing outside the transcending mortality palace. What surprised Suyu was that there were 5 outer sanctum's disciples who were wearing blue robes guarding the palace. Their cultivations were all at least at the level 6 fairy realm. Suyu could faintly detect the aura of a divine master in the palace. Apart from the 18 great factions, most of the family factions only had one divine master and many fairy realm experts to form a large-scale family faction. Yet, in the Red Blood Palace's outer sanctum, they were merely the guards of a single palace. Suyu stepped forward and was about to ask how he could enter. 500 contribution points per entry, the guard said expressionlessly. The guard on the other side scanned Suyu from head to toe. It seemed like Suyu was a new face, and it was strange that he looked so old. Could he be an old man who had made an exception to enter? Disdain rose in his heart, and he impatiently waved his hand. Every time this time, there are always newcomers like you who wander around. Before you understand the rules of the outer sanctum, don't go out. Go back and think of a way to earn 500 merit points first. Suyu had wanted to ask nicely, but before he could even open his mouth, the other party had chased him away with such an impatient attitude. Dusting off his sleeves, Suyu calmly looked at the guard who was trying to expel him. I have rewarded you with an additional entry qualification. Is there a problem with that? The 5 guards couldn't help but cast astonished gazes at him. The Transcendence Pond usually required contribution points to be exchanged for, and it was extremely rare for someone to obtain special permission to enter directly. What is the reason for the reward? The guard, who was being stared at by Suyu, was startled. With a scrutinizing gaze, he asked again. Suyu clasped his hands behind his back and said, "Does the person who came first in the recruitment exam count?" The expression of the guard who was examining him changed. The external recruitment test that just ended, he didn't believe it. The other 4 guards couldn't help but frown. His cultivation was too weak, and no matter how he looked at it, a level 1 fairy wouldn't be able to get the first place in the exam. Furthermore, he was so old. No matter how one looked at him, he did not look like a young disciple who had entered through the proper channels. Just as the guard was about to speak, Suyu's expression became gloomy. Fine. Do I still need to be interrogated by guards just to enter the Transcendence Pond? It doesn't matter if we don't enter the Transcendence Pond. I'll personally ask elderly Weather Palace Mistress Kong Chan needs to personally give instructions to the 5 guards before letting them pass. It was just a simple baptism in the Transcendence Pond, but it was blocked by 5 guards. Although he wasn't angry, he was unhappy. Hey, wait. The expression of the guard who spoke changed. He had seen that Suyu's cultivation was weak, so he wanted to see him in person. But, seeing that Suyu was serious, how could he continue to make things difficult for him? However, Suyu turned a deaf ear to him and left on his own. This time, he was extremely anxious. Their duty was merely to protect and guide the new disciples on how to use their merit points to enter the Transcendence Pond. He had enough merit points to pass, but not enough to refuse. Apart from that, everything else was superfluous. For example, the questioning just now was purely forbidden. It was fine if the elders above did not ask about it, but if they took it seriously, they would be severely punished. Moreover, the old man in front of him seemed to have some background. Junior brother, please wait. The guard walked down the stairs and was about to stop Suyu from leaving. Right at this moment, the door to the mortal rebirth hall opened silently, and an old man with a goatee stood there with his hands behind his back. He had a furious expression on his face, and his eyes contained rage. "Greetings, Palace Master Long." The guards were startled, and they hurriedly greeted. The guards who had chased after him hurriedly returned and bowed their heads in greeting. The goateed old man's expression was gloomy as he glanced at the guard in front of him. He snorted and said, "Your mission for this month has ended early. You can go back now. You don't have to come here to carry out missions anymore. Go." Hearing this, the other 4 guards' faces changed drastically, and their hearts were filled with anxiety. In the Red Blood Palace, the Outer Sanctum's disciples were required to carry out at least one mission every month. There were good and bad missions, but the good missions rewarded a lot of merit points. Bad missions were tiring and dangerous, and the merit points were few. Usually, good missions were obtained by disciples who were well-informed or had connections with the mission distribution hall. It was very difficult for ordinary disciples to obtain good missions. As such, the Mortal Rebirth Hall's missions were considered high-grade missions, and they rewarded more merit points than ordinary missions. Moreover, they were quite safe and comfortable, and it was difficult for ordinary disciples to obtain them. The 5 guards' families all had some connection with the old man, and that was why they could carry out such missions every month. The talkative guard was deprived of his right to carry out missions in the future, and it was a great loss to him. It was extremely difficult to earn merit points in the Red Blood Palace, and such missions could only be obtained by chance. When the guard heard this, his expression changed drastically, and he knelt down on the ground and begged, "Palace Master Long, please show mercy. I was foolish and broke the rules. Please show mercy to me." This wasn't the first time something like this had happened in the past, but Palace Master Long usually turned a blind eye to it, as he was too lazy to fuss about it. As for those disciples who had suffered from Palace Master Long's anger, they didn't even dare to cause trouble for him. However, today, Palace Master Long took the initiative to fly into a rage, and he didn't even care about the guard's relationship with his family. Palace Master Long's goatee trembled as he snorted softly and said, "You dared to refuse even the external recruitment test champion who was appointed by Palace Mistress Kongchan. My little meow can't tolerate a great Buddha like you, so you should look for another one." Palace Master Long didn't wait for the guard to beg for mercy, as he waved his sleeves and sent him down the stairs. At the same time, Palace Master Long wore a faint smile as he walked down the stairs. He wore an amiable expression as he asked, "Are you Su Yuxian? Elderly already mentioned to me that you would come here, and he has been waiting for you for a long time. The guard didn't know your identity and offended you, so please don't take it to heart." Even a palace master had lowered himself, and no matter how displeased Su Yu was, he still had to give him face. "Palace Master, you are worrying too much. It's just a small misunderstanding," Su Yu said. "May I ask how I can enter the palace?" After all, he couldn't just enter such a heavily guarded place just because he wanted to. Palace Master Long chuckled and asked, "Do you carry your identity badge with you?" Su Yu nodded. Many elders had reminded him repeatedly that he must carry it with him at all times. Once he was inspected by the law enforcement hall, and if he didn't carry it, he would be taken to the law enforcement hall and interrogated severely. "It's with me." Su Yu nodded. Palace Master Long pointed at a bluish stone wall that was beside the gate. It was extremely smooth and translucent, as if it was made of fine jade. There was a notch at the center of the stone wall that was as thick as a steel needle, and it was just big enough for him to insert his identity badge into it. Su Yu understood what he meant, and as he inserted his identity badge into it, 3 lines of small words appeared on the stone wall. Merit points balance, 1,000. Additional entry count, 1. This time, you will use the extra entries as your priority. The 1,000 merit points were given to Su Yu because he was the first in the exam, and the number of entries into the Transcending Mortality Palace was also a reward. "It's fine. The next time you enter, you will need to use 500 merit points each time, and there won't be any exceptions. Even I can't make a decision on my own to allow someone to enter without inserting his identity badge into the palace. Once you do so, the palace's formation will sound, and you, as the palace master, will be punished by the outer sanctum. Palace Master Long's meaning was that even if he wanted to open a back door for Suyu, it would be difficult for him to do so. When Suyu heard this, he revealed a faint smile and said, "Palace Master Long, I will have to trouble you." After he received the badge, they both entered the palace. While walking, Suyu asked, "It's my first time here, so can I ask you some questions?" Palace Master Long was quite straightforward about this. "You don't need to call me Junior, as I've only reached the early stage of the Divine Master Realm despite my age. There's a great disparity between me and a talented person like you. You can just call me Palace Master Long, and if you have any questions, you could just ask me." Suyu's name had already spread among the Outer Sanctum's Divine Masters, as he was another demonic genius who managed to step into the 50th layer of the carp leaping over the Dragon Gate. At the same time, he was highly regarded by the two lesser Palace Masters, Palace Master Kong Chan and Palace Master Hua. His future achievements would surely be limitless. After all, who wouldn't want to befriend Suyu unless they had a grudge against him? After all, if he entered the inner sanctum in the future, he might even remember their kindness and help them earn some benefits. Suyu thanked him and asked, "Palace Master, may I ask what merit points are? What use do they have, and how can I earn them?" Palace Master Long had already been asked such a question, which was common knowledge, thousands of times, so he felt like he was chewing wax. If ordinary people asked him such a question, he wouldn't bother to answer it. But when Suyu asked him such a question, he explained it to him enthusiastically. You can use merit points as the Red Blood Palace's currency, and you can use it to buy anything apart from the things that are prohibited by the Red Blood Palace. Remember, it can be anything. As long as you have enough merit points, you can buy cultivation opportunities, such as the Transcendence Pawn's cultivation opportunities. As long as you have enough merit points, you can buy cultivation techniques, elixirs, talismans, magical treasures, and many other things. As long as you have enough merit points, you can buy anything from spirit cultivation techniques to legendary cultivation techniques. He then added, "Moreover, if you want to relax and have some fun while cultivating, you can even get some cities. As long as it's the Red Blood Palace's property, you can use merit points to trade for it." He then added, "These are the transactions set up by the Red Blood Palace's internal organizations. Apart from this, you can also trade with other Outer Sanctum's disciples. You can hire them to help you explore and become your helpers. Or, if they have something you want, you can use merit points to get it from them." He then added, "In short, merit points are what you can use to settle down in the Sanctum, and you can use them to exchange for resources to cultivate. The amount of merit points you have determines how many resources you can enjoy." Upon hearing this, Suyu understood everything clearly. In fact, merit points were a form of currency. For example, in the mortal world, rich people could enjoy all resources, such as cultivation resources, beautiful women, and people's respect and love. As for the poor, they had to struggle to make ends meet. Suyu currently had 1,000 merit points, which was considered a large fortune in the Outer Sanctum. But if he just sat there and ate it all, he would soon become a poor man. Then, how can I get merit points? Suyu asked. Chapter 786. He then added, "Thus, if you aren't extremely rich, then you shouldn't consider exchanging crystals for them. This is also the Sanctum's way of suppressing this, as it hopes that its disciples can obtain merit points through another method." Suyu's mind was slightly shaken, as the second method was the most common one. The second way is to accept missions. The mission hall will issue thousands of missions every day, and each mission comes with merit points as a reward. Some of the more powerful ones can simultaneously complete 3 or 4 short-term missions in a day, earning a dozen to dozens of merit points, or even hundreds of merit points. After a month, it won't be difficult to earn more than 1,000 merit points. Then, through cultivation, they can increase their strength and accept higher-level missions to earn even more merit points. This is a virtuous cycle. Suyu nodded. Accepting missions was the most important way to get merit points. The third method is quite rare, so you can just use it as a reference. The Sanctum buys elixirs, talismans, magical treasures, cultivation techniques, demonic beast materials, and so on. Their prices are naturally lower than the market price, but their safety is guaranteed. Moreover, they can be directly exchanged for merit points, which is more worthwhile than exchanging crystals for them. He then added, the last method is quite rare. Occasionally, there are disciples who have performed meritorious deeds for the sanctum, and they are rewarded with a large amount of merit points. But since the Red Blood Palace is peaceful, it's rare for an outer sanctum's disciple to perform meritorious deeds. It's fine that you know about it, but you don't need to take it to heart. After all, I've been in the outer sanctum for 100 years, and I've only received such rewards 3 or 5 times. After listening to him, Suyu made a mental note of it. It seemed like he must pay more attention to the method of earning merit points. Soon, they reached the Transcendence Pond. It was a milky, spiritual pond, which had a circumference of several meters. It was filled with milky, spiritual liquid, which emitted an extraordinary spiritual energy. Okay, you should cultivate here peacefully. After you finish cultivating, you must immediately go to the martial training room to consolidate your power. Suyu nodded and cupped his fist to express his gratitude. As he looked at the pond full of spiritual liquid, Suyu's gaze became filled with anticipation as he quickly entered it. As he was engulfed by the gentle spiritual liquid, Suyu's whole body felt extremely comfortable. The powerful spiritual liquid seeped into his body through every single hair and nourished his heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. Suyu could faintly feel that his body had become slightly stronger. Suyu was delighted. He immediately closed his eyes and revolved his vital energy. The spiritual liquid that had entered his body was quickly transported to every part of his body to temper his physique. 2 hours later, Suyu slowly opened his eyes. An air current was circulating above his head. The spiritual energy that was drifting in the surroundings suddenly gathered above Suyu's head. Hall Master Long, who was cultivating in seclusion, could not help but open his eyes and exclaim, as expected of a monstrous genius who managed to ascend to the 50th floor. After enduring the pressure, his body has been tempered, and now that he has experienced the baptism of the Transcendence Pond, his body has become even stronger. With the benefits piling up, it's only natural for him to make a breakthrough. In the outer sect, the strong became stronger, and the weak became weaker. The more resources a powerhouse obtained, the faster their strength would grow. It was the opposite for the weak. Even Palace Master Long couldn't help but envy Suyu's cultivation. Whoosh! Strong spiritual energy entered Suyu's body and continuously squeezed his dantian, causing the space between them to expand continuously. After an hour, the dantian in Suyu's body had expanded by a whole fold. His liquefied, true chi capacity had also doubled. His vital energy reserves were already comparable to a level 4 fairy. Now, even if he didn't use his magical treasures, he could still contend against a level 4 fairy. After Suyu finished cultivating, the milky spiritual liquid in the pond became thinner, which meant that his cultivation had come to an end and that he must leave. After Suyu bid farewell to Palace Master Long, he immediately rushed to the cultivation room to consolidate his power. The guards at the door were all envious of him. In the past, they had all been newcomers, and they had spent 3 years just to gather enough resources to advance to the level 2 fairy realm. Suyu, who had just arrived, managed to advance to the level 2 fairy realm. After Suyu left, 2 people came out of a hidden place outside the Transcendence Palace. One of them was Shaoli, who was carrying a large bough on her back. Her gaze was ice cold as she watched Suyu leave. Beside her was a plump, 25-year-old youth who had a youthful face. His gaze was ice cold as he asked, "Is he Suyu, who killed Xiao Lingjian? Didn't you say that he was only a level 1 fairy?" Surprise appeared in Xiao Li's eyes. He was definitely a level 1 fairy during the test. That scoundrel unexpectedly managed to advance to the level 2 fairy realm. Brother Qingfeng, the family master, sent me a message, saying that we must obstruct his cultivation before he goes to the ruins. Do you have a way to stop him? Shaoli asked. Although her face was expressionless, her heart was filled with displeasure. She had entered the Red Blood Palace with great difficulty, and she didn't want to waste her cultivation time and energy on a dead young master. It was the same for Xiao Qingfeng. Neither he nor Xiao Li came from the main bloodline, and they were only willing to obey the Xiao family's orders because they weren't powerful enough to break free from the Xiao family's control. Isn't it easy? We just need to cripple him and injure him for a while, Xiao Qingfeng said. Xiao Li's eyes lit up. Brother Qingfeng, you want to deal with him? If that's the case, then it won't be a problem. With his level 8 fairy realm cultivation, even if Suyu had 3 heads and 6 arms, he would still have to bear a grudge against him. Xiao Qingfeng said, No, I'm an old man who joined the faction 3 years ago, and it isn't convenient for me to attack a newcomer in public. So, I will leave this matter to you. Xiao Li was startled. Me? She was inwardly hesitant. She wanted to fight Suyu to see who was stronger, but she was also worried that she wasn't Suyu's match. Don't worry. Of course I won't let you go on stage like that, Xiao Qingfeng said as he took a charm from his sleeves. This is a charm carved by one of our family's elders, and it contains an attack of a level 7 fairy. If it's used well, it can injure Suyu heavily. Xiao Li was overjoyed when she sensed the astonishing power contained in the talisman. However, she soon became worried and asked, Brother Qingfeng, he won't be injured too badly, right? After all, he is favored by the 2 young palace masters. If we go too far, I'm afraid it will backfire. Don't worry. Since he was able to make it past the 50th floor, it's clear that his strength is exceptional. There won't be any danger to his life. We're from the same branch, so why would he harm you? Xiao Li hesitated for a moment before she nodded slowly. She then hid the talisman and chased after Suyu. Xiao Qingfeng followed her from afar. As he looked at Xiao Li's back, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. Li'er, I'll have to trouble you to destroy that brat's cultivation this time. I'll accept the reward from the clan. The martial arts training hall was also heavily guarded. There were fairies guarding it, as well as a hidden divine master overseeing it. There were truly many god lords in the outer sect. After inserting the card, an option appeared on the stone wall. Illusory Fighting Cultivation Room is already full. Open Fighting Cultivation Room, 10 merit points for each use. What is an illusory fighting cultivation room? Suyu was quite curious about it, but since all of the cultivation rooms were already full, he could only choose to open one. As its name implied, it was a cultivation room that was open to the public. Everyone was gathered in a giant hall, and they all looked for a corner to either sit in meditation, cultivate, or spar with each other. Suyu couldn't help but click his tongue when he saw it. There were at least 1,000 people here, and they all occupied every corner of the hall. According to reason, martial artists preferred quiet places, as they didn't like to be disturbed. However, there were many people sitting cross-legged here, meditating. They would rather bear with all the noises in order to cultivate here. It was only when Suyu entered the hall that a wave of spiritual energy, which was 3 times denser than the outside world's, assaulted his nostrils. Cultivating here for a day was equivalent to cultivating in the outside world for 3 days, and this was why many people flocked here like ducks. Moreover, the people who could easily spend 10 merit points to cultivate here were mostly the outer sanctum's old men, and newcomers surely wouldn't be willing to spend so much. Suyu swept the area with his gaze and looked for a spacious place. He then sat down cross-legged and started to circulate his energy to stabilize his cultivation. After he circulated his energy for a full cycle and confirmed that every part of his body had adapted to his new realm, he stopped. However, Suyu didn't stand up. Instead, he was pondering the issue of his current cultivation technique. His main cultivation technique was the heaven sun gazing at air technique. As for the other cultivation techniques, such as the Buddhist sensei characters, he had already finished cultivating them. He didn't have any cultivation techniques for now, and it seemed like he would have to exchange them for a book. However, he would have to carefully consider which path he should take. In the past, he was proficient in lightning techniques, fire techniques, and ice techniques. Now, in JoJo, he wondered if he could find any related cultivation techniques. Moreover, the Scarlet Blood Duke belonged to a demonic faction, so shouldn't he cultivate some demonic cultivation techniques? As Suyu pondered this, he got lost in his thoughts. While he was pondering this, a fragrant wind blew toward him. At the same time, a soft handkerchief appeared, which was wiping the sweat from Suyu's forehead. Suyu was startled, and he woke up from his meditation. He didn't even notice that someone was approaching him. This person's concealment technique was really powerful. Moreover, what annoyed Suyu the most was that it was a woman, and she was even wiping his forehead. Suyu was a man, and when a woman offered herself to him, he couldn't help but feel vexed by this shameless woman. When Suyu opened his eyes, he was startled to see that the crowd of cultivators around him had all disappeared. It wasn't just Suyu's surroundings that had disappeared, as the whole training room was empty and silent. It was as if they had all disappeared from the world. This was completely different from the previous noisy scene. What happened? Suyu thought to himself. He couldn't help but raise his head to look at the woman who was wiping his sweat. When he raised his head, Suyu's line of sight was level with the woman's legs. She was wearing a bright red dress, which was quite exquisite. However, what dumbfounded Suyu was that he could faintly see a pair of thighs beneath the dress. This wasn't the main point, as the main point was that her thighs were covered with black hair. That's right, they were hair. They were densely packed, and they were even thicker than a middle-aged man's hair. Suyu sweated inwardly. Where did this woman come from? Suyu's gaze continued to move upwards, and he saw a water tank waist. Suyu swore that the description wasn't wrong. That was a water tank waist, a waist that was coarser than a cow's. As he continued to move upwards, he saw a pair of breasts that were as large as basketball balls. Yes, they were as large as basketball balls. What made Suyu even more dumbfounded was that he could clearly see that the large breasts were, in fact, 2 rocks. Yes, rocks. Puff! Suyu almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Without a doubt, this was a man disguised as a woman. Actually, what irritated Suyu the most was that even if he wanted to disguise himself, he should at least be professional. What's with the thick, hairy legs? Can you tighten your water tank waist? Can you hide the rock breasts a little tighter? I've been seen by someone. At this moment, a creepy, flirtatious voice drifted into his ears.